want to bring this sitting the regular meeting to order. Ms. Barr, could you please, and the roll call. Oh, before that, we will do Carol. Could you please lead us for Pledge of Allegiance? Our Pledge of Allegiance. Right.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Barr, could you do roll call, please?
Councilmember Felder,
Here.
Councilmember Lowe,
Here.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Here.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Mayor Dean.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. I want to report our closed section. Today, we started 5:15. We discussed about formal city council. We already give the direction to the city attorney already. That is our decision. Next, we would like to review our today's agenda. If any agenda to be, then change it.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Yes.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, let's go to agenda number 1. That is comments from the public. This time, you can make the comments, whatever the items not appearing on this agenda. I suggest you to keep your speech 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity. My name is James Whitaker. I live at the corner of East Napa Street and 5th Street East. Just about a week ago, my dog Rusty was hit by a car and killed. It was only the first time in his life and the last time that he got through a side gate and decided to try to cross 5th Street to get to the other side where we often started our walks. He had never been walked off leash, so I think he expected that we would get over there and leash him up and then continue. Unfortunately, I witnessed the accident. I had come through the gate to try to grab him, and I saw a car coming too fast around the corner from East Street, heading towards the plaza, and just whipped around the corner and hit him. The car did not stop to help or find out how Rusty was. I had to go out. He was bleeding, pick him up, get him in the car, and try to get him to the Arroyo Veterinary Clinic, where they told me that he had not made it. It was tragic and horrifying, and a vision I will never be able to unsee. What makes it worse is that it was probably unavoidable. Since I moved here, the neighbors have been complaining about that unsafe intersection on a regular basis, and many of those complaints have been reported to the city manager's office, the council, etc. And there's never really been an adequate response, mostly radio silence or back shuffling around. What makes that intersection so unsafe, in my opinion, is that there is not a stop sign coming on East Napa, either heading east or west at that intersection. And as you probably know, a lot of people from the community use 5th Street to head south on their way to Napa or on their way to the East Bay. So it's a lot of traffic there. Always a lot of traffic on East Napa, but a lot of traffic on 5th Street as well. There's no way to stop or slow down the traffic, and that's really my number one concern. I would also like to say that I believe that big commercial trucks are not allowed in that section of the city, and yet they're on that street bombing down all the time, and there's almost never a police car in sight and no enforcement. Anything you can do to help, I would appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Sheehan. I live across from James and Peter at 502 5th Street East. Excuse me?
Close to
Oh,
the
sorry.
mic, please.
I'm Brian Sheehan. I live at 502 5th Street East, across from James and Peter. And same kind of situation where, walking our dog and the cars are just kind of whipping around that corner. And, it's morning, noon, and night. We at sunset, we actually carry a little hiking flashlight with us just to kind of flag the cars down so that they, kind of slow down a little bit. It's supposed to be 25, but typically, it's I would say it's between 40 and 50 miles an hour right there. And they're trying to do a no brake turn coming onto 5th Street. So I do think there needs to be a traffic study or stop sign or something just to figure out what could be done. And I think, that street is kind of like, besides Broadway, it's an entrance to the city of Sonoma. So I think, looking at 8th, 7th, 6th, kind of 5th, sort of, figuring out how to kind of control traffic and slow things down and also make it a welcome point to Sonoma, I think would be appreciated. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Fitzgerald. I'm James's partner, and I live on the corner of East Napa and 5th Street. And I was not there to witness Rusty's death. I was out of town, but when I heard it, as shocked as I was, I can't say I was surprised. We've lived there for over 2 years, and you are, in Rusty's case, he took his life in his hands trying to cross that road. And most of us are on high alert, as Brian said, when we try and cross that road. I'm not going to repeat what you've heard. I did want to refer you to information that I've provided to you on the history of trying to address safety at this intersection. And also you'll see there at the bottom, there's a little picture of Rusty. He was a 2-year-old dog and isn't going to make it past that. But what I would emphasize for you in this history is we've known this area is a hazard for over 3 years. At one point, almost 3 years ago, the city promised that there would be a 3-way stop sign at that intersection, and nothing has happened. And I don't believe that's because anybody thought nothing needed to be done. As you all are aware, due to your positions, there's been a lot of turnover in leadership here at the city. We've been through a pandemic. During the pandemic, traffic slowed briefly, but we've all seen that it's back in full force. It's really long past time to take action and make this intersection safe. We can't keep treating that area, our intersection, as a thoroughfare through the city. As James said, we have trucks, commercial trucks going through there way too fast. We have people on their way trying to get from one point to another going through there way too fast, and there is nothing that is stopping them from going too fast. And it's, in this case, it was Rusty, as I think you'll hear from others. He's not the first dog to be hit. He's not the first dog to die. And if we don't do something, he will not be the last person to suffer at that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Myatt, and I live next to Peter and James and across the street from Bruce, Brian. And I have witnessed this traffic problem for a long time. I've been living at 527 5th Street East for almost 6 years. And I was with Greg when he was making his, Greg Brennan appeal to the city to put up a stop sign. He would not, he's not here tonight because he's in Hawaii. He hadn't planned to be at the city council meeting. So he would, but I'm trying to represent him because he put together a lot of work and trying to tell the people, the leadership of this city, that we need a stop sign there. People leave 4th Street East heading east. And the time they get to the 5th Street, they'll be going 60 miles an hour. I'm not kidding you. And some of them turned. I bought a radar gun to check it out, and I have seen them go 50 miles an hour before they get to my house, and it's 50 meters from my house to the corner. And it's nothing will, no painting, nothing will stop it except stop signs. You could maybe want to get a policeman to enforce it for the trucks and all that, but you can't afford a policeman there to be a traffic cop. You've got to do something, and I appeal for you to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Good evening. I'm Tarni Baldinger, and I've been in the Valley since 1972, following a very sad subject with another very sad subject. I wanted to come tonight, before I talk to Mayor Ding, to thank you for continuing to fly the flag of Ukraine. There's no way I can convey to you how important that is, how much energy that gives to those of us in the Valley who are deeply concerned and connected, how much energy it gives to Ukrainians who see pictures, and they do. Kyiv, our sister city, loves Sonoma. It's their favorite city, and they see our media, so it's very important. And then Jack asked me if I please could give some kind of a report on what it's like in Kyiv right now. And those of you who don't know, Kyiv is a city of about 26,000, about the size of Sonoma Valley, a little bit smaller than Sonoma Valley. So very comparable communities. But I want to begin by playing a little audio clip. See if I can do this right. This goes on continuously for 2 to 3 hours, several times a day. At the moment, most people go on about their lives, but a lot of people head for shelters. Their official shelters are for 3,000 people. There are many 11-story apartment buildings where there's not enough basement space. People up in the hills have basements or root cellars, but a lot of people just left, in their apartments. So what she writes, this is a woman who's actually an old friend of mine who's a member of the city council there, Irina Roshkova, who is herself a displaced person from 2014 from Luhansk. And I think we Americans forget that this war started in 2014. It did not start in February. So I will actually give you guys a copy of this. I've just highlighted a few things. She says, the Kyiv community, thank God, is not in the zone of shelling, but planes and missiles fly through us all the time. So almost all the time there is an air alarm in the city. The city accepted, this is a city of 26,000, accepted 3,000 refugees as of April 4th from all cities in the shelling zone. So Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, Mariupol, etc. You've heard the names on the news. And as of, and they've already received 318 internally displaced people since 2014 who have become permanent residents of Kyiv, of whom this woman is one. Kyiv City Territorial Community works accept refugees from all over Ukraine. Local territorial defense stands for the protection of the city, community, strategic objects. And I've asked for some pictures around town, and most of the pictures they can't send me because there are military, protective things there, and they can't take pictures of them. So most of the city, they can't send me any
Excuse
pictures.
me, Tony.
Yeah.
Your time is over 3 minutes. I give you additional 1 minute, please.
You're the one who requested the report. So she said farmers, okay, so they found cases of saboteurs in the city that they've had to, anyway, farmers are working, as you can imagine, they're going to have to feed all of Ukraine, right? So then the fuel has been cut short and so forth. They work tirelessly for victory 7 days a week. All the volunteers do their jobs, go work most of the night on humanitarian assistance and so forth. She said this is a global catastrophe that should not be in a civilized world in the 21st century. And you can read the details. But I also, along with giving you that, I'm going to give each of you a set of 4 poems of mine, 2 of them from 2015 when I first encountered the war. One called To the Russian Mother Whose Son Did Not Die in Donbass because he was never there, and another called This Then Is the War, when I first saw a funeral and I realized, oh my God, this is real. And then 2 I wrote very recently, one called Instructions to Russian Soldiers in Retreat, which you can imagine is not a pretty poem, and the other called Heroim Slava, which means To the Hero's Glory, which I wrote to the Ukrainian people. So they may give slightly a different flavor to your experience of all this. So shall I bring those up now, or should I give them later, or what?
Pass to other staff.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was going to bring you flags, but I ran out of time.
Much. Any more?
Don't start my clock yet. My name is Armando Zimmerman. I live on West Spain Street between 2nd and 3rd. I want to hear that say that I'm here to represent myself and several of my neighbors. I'm sorry to hear about the accident with the dog and everything else. Unfortunately, our neighbor last fall was seriously injured crossing into the Vallejo driveway, and his dog was killed, and he was seriously injured too. So I just a lot of sadness here. But anyway, West Spain Street, especially from 5th to the Plaza, is a high traffic volume street, and basically for some, it's a speedway, and there's little or no enforcement of the speed limit. The road surface is crumbling between 2nd and 3rd. I don't think it can be slurry sealed or anything at this point. It makes the traffic even louder because you've got trucks, trailers, commercial vehicles, et cetera, people going too fast. Makes it a very loud road. Often, if my car's on the street, it's not safe to open my door. I have to hide behind my car. If I'm coming in or out of my driveway, it's unsafe. And it just goes on. But anyway, we're planning to ask the city formally. We're going to write something up. I'm just bringing this up as a prelude. We want to ask for a speed table or a stop sign or a pedestrian-controlled crossing signal at 3rd Street at the Vallejo driveway. We also are asking that red curbs be painted at that intersection, because without those red curbs, cars park all the way to the pedestrian crossing, and basically the lines of sight are bad for the pedestrians and the drivers, whichever way they're going. We're going to ask for solar-powered speed limit signs, such as you have on Napa Street, bi-directional, because we have as much traffic coming and going as, so we're going to ask for that. We have not made this formal request to the city yet, but we intend to, and I hope that it gets the attention it deserves. By the way, a lot of the ideas that I have, I've taken from the improvements that have been made on Napa Street, East Napa Street, and so those ideas come from things the city has already done. So I don't think these requests are outrageous or will be outrageous, and I hope they get the attention they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Somebody's phone. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Larry Barnett, 637 Fifth Street East. Let me say I completely endorse the idea of stop sign on East Napa Street at the corner of Fifth Street East. I've lived there nearly 30 years, and it's a long past due that we should have some better traffic control there. With regard to pedestrian safety in general, I was curious about what the city's plans are for enhanced pedestrian crossing safety measures at France and Andrew, the intersection at Patton, across from Pete's. My expectation was when the Broadway striping was done, I remember something about the city saying it had allocated a couple of $100,000 for pedestrian safety improvements, but obviously nothing went in when the street was resurfaced and restriped. So I'm sure I'm not alone in hoping that some information about what measures will be put on Broadway is forthcoming. As most of you know, I'm a fairly avid walker, and I cross Broadway virtually every day if I'm walking west, and it really needs some attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Any more public comments?
Hi, I'm Denise Spencer. I live at 620 Fifth Street East, and I just want you to know that I wholeheartedly also agree that we need a stop sign at Fifth and Napa. Even when I don't have my dog, doing the crosswalk there feels really dangerous, just alone. I always have to look behind me to make sure somebody isn't coming around too fast. So I really look forward to having that be a safer intersection for me and my neighbors and our little furry ones as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Any more public comments? Looks like none. Thank you, everyone, for your public comments. Let's go to agenda number 2, meeting dedication.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to dedicate this meeting this evening to Dr. John E. Emery. With deep sadness, we have lost one of the legendary greats. February 21st, 2022, John E. Emery. He was an Olympic gold medalist, noted plastic surgeon, and philanthropist. He was the most amazing person I think I've ever heard or met. He's traveled all over the world. When his brother called saying, I have a new sport for us, come to St. Moritz now, and he left the next day. This was the beginning of the bobsleigh sport in Canada. They put together a 4-man team to compete in the 1964 Innsbruck Olympics. As newbies to the sport, their talent surprised everyone when they actually won the coveted gold medal for that event. He ran with the bulls in Pamplona. I've only know a few people that have done that. Great marathon runner. In 1967, John would become one of the most influential plastic surgeons of his time, opening his own suite, which included a surgery center, which is something that was a model for other surgeons. And he, of course, married his wife, Deborah. He met her in 1968. They were married in 81. He had 2 children before that, Allison and Tamara. Their son, with Deborah, their son John E. Emery II was born in 83. In 2008, after 45 years, John retired from his position in practice and at that time moved to Sonoma. John has a blessed family life. Besides his 4 children, he is survived by his brother Victor Emery, his son and daughter-in-law Tim Mock and Jamie Emery, his grands Mackenzie and Madison Mock, Johnny Emery III, Brent Emery, and several nieces and nephews. I'll tell you, it says here, a close friend said, this guy packed more into one lifetime than most could in multiple lifetimes. Thank you. I'm dedicating this to Dr. John E. Emery.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Ding. I'm really honored to be able to dedicate this meeting to two people who are very special in my life and into the lives and touched many around them, their families. The first is Papa Ray Carlamagno, who is the father of Luann Carlamagno, our former superintendent of schools and former colleague of mine at Sonoma High School. And it was such a touching service. The priest mentioned that when he was going to give Papa Ray his last rites, that he had to turn down Happy Lane and realized that Happy Lane was an appropriate name for that particular street and that particular person who was always so incredibly happy. And he just lived his life with so much love. You could just feel it in that room, and the way his grandchildren and extended family, it was just really touching. And I just want to say that is certainly a life well lived, because it was a life well loved. And I want to be I'm so honored to be able to say something nice about Ray Carlamagno. I was also saddened to learn that a former colleague of mine, Steve Larimore, passed away. And Steve Larimore was an institution at Altamira Middle School. I required every single one of my children to absolutely go to his class, and they learned history. He had the most incredible whiteboard that was covered with more things on it than you could possibly imagine, and somehow he managed to connect them all and make history something that people enjoyed. I loved the songs he sang, patriotic songs, and other songs of inspiration. I was honored to have been a teacher along with Steve Larimore and a colleague, and I send my best out to Linda, Ashley, and Brandy on their loss. Thank you, Mayor Ding.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other dedication? Yeah? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's move to another agenda item, that is item 3, presentation. 3.1, presentation by Deputy Finance Director Garcia.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am Liz Garcia, the city's Deputy Finance Director. What? Should I sit over there? Would it be better? Okay. Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulties here.
It worked right before the
It's
meeting started.
always, yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Slide 2. Tonight is a review of the budget process, a brief review of government finance, and staff's recommendations for the budget study session formats. Slide 3. We have 2 planned budget workshops. The workshops will be May 4th and 18th, and anticipate a budget adoption on June 1st. On August 17th, staff will come back to council with the 22-23 budget book. The cities provide many services that are not based on fees for service, although some activities at operate as business type activities are based on user fees, such as the water utility and cemetery. A budget is a financial plan projecting revenues and expenditures for a defined period of time. The city currently has 54 active funds, each with a different purpose. You can think of this as 54 different companies that the city operates. The general fund is used to account for general operations and activities. Council has significantly more discretion about how they can spend this revenue. This is the city's main operating fund. It's largely funded with general tax revenue. Fiscal impacts to the general fund play a large part in the city's ability to pay for core community services such as public safety. The city has two main types of proprietary funds: enterprise funds and internal service funds. Proprietary funds can only charge customers the cost that the city incurs. The city cannot make a profit on these services. The enterprise funds account for operations that are financed and function like a private business. Separate funds, such as the water fund and the cemetery fund, are established for specific purposes, and the cost to provide the related service is paid for with revenues primarily user charges generated and recorded in the fund. Enterprise funds are intended to be fully self-supporting and not subsidized by the general fund or other funds. Internal service funds are used to account for the special services provided by the city departments from within the city. Services are paid by other funds through transfers for the calculated service or replacement fees. The city uses funds to develop reserves for large purchases, such as vehicles or large building maintenance projects. This avoids large fluctuations due to large asset purchases or significant repairs. The city has 3 internal service funds. We have the Management Information Service Fund, which is IT and software related, the Vehicle Replacement Fund, and the Long-Term Building Maintenance Fund. Special revenue funds are used to account for revenues that are legally restricted for specifically identified purposes. Some examples of these are gas tax fund, where the revenue received can only be used for the maintenance of streets, street lighting, signals, and markings. Road maintenance, SB1, that one accounts for funds received by the state of California to be used by road maintenance and rehabilitation. And the Parks Measure M Fund, where funds received from a countywide 1/8 cent sales tax designated to be used for the park maintenance and capital projects. Fiduciary funds are used to account for assets that are held in trust for others, and therefore the monies cannot be used to fund the government's own expenses. Trust funds are set up for the benefit of a particular group or beneficiary, such as the cemetery endowment. And agency funds are used to account for funds held by the city for other governmental agencies. The Redevelopment Successor Agency is the largest fund that the city maintains in the agency fund. The other governmental funds are the funds that don't fit in the other categories. These would be the capital projects funds, a debt service fund. Restricted funds exist when constraints are placed on the use of resources. In order to use the monies, council must meet the revenue restrictions. For example, the bond proceeds must be spent for the designated purpose within 5 years. Consequences to exceeding the 5 years includes the required use of proceeds towards the payment of the debt. Grants from other governments are designated for special purposes. As the city has only one central administration, each department and enterprise fund share the services provided. legal, city manager, human resources, and administrative services. The costs associated for these services are charged out to the other departments and the funds based on the calculated percentage for their shared service. For example, the cost of preparing payroll for the water fund is calculated based on a percentage of staffing and the related administrative expenses to prepare the payroll, and then it's allocated to the water fund. Capital Improvement Program is a 5-year plan which identifies projects that refurbish and improve city infrastructure and equipment. Projects included in CIP are generally large and expensive, often taking multiple years to complete and require special funding sources outside of the city's general fund. The CIP identifies the project schedule and financing plan for each project. The CIP includes projects to improve the city's streets, sidewalks, bikeways, water system, storm drainage, parks and open space, cemeteries, and other city-owned buildings. And these are some of the funding sources for the CIPs. Next slide. Reserves help make sure that Sonoma can respond quickly and decisively to extreme events. A reserve provides protection from risk by giving the city time to make the needed adjustments. Sonoma's reserve policy for the general operating fund and the water operating reserve is 17% annual expenditures. In other words, 2 months of expenses. Next slide. Next slide, please. Staff is proposing a different format for the 22-23 budget study sessions and adoption process. Rather than preparing the budget book ahead of council's approval, staff will prepare revenue projections, schedules, and budget recommendations and for revenue sources and expense categories in the same format that's detailed in the budget books. Staff will bring schedules split out by category detailing the prior 2 years' actual revenue and expense, as well as last year's budget and the staff proposed budget. Nope, that's good. Staff will review with council the revenue assumptions and history by category used to create the staff proposed budget. The presentations will include discussions of the larger revenue types like sales tax and Measure V and TOT. Department heads will be at the council budget study sessions to present their department's 21-22 accomplishments and the fiscal year 22-23 goals and the proposed budget. A capital improvement program discussion will include a summary by project, a year-to-date activity, updated projections, and detailed spreadsheets on projects that council has not previously approved. So what's next? So the workshops will be on May 4th and May 18th. If another study session is needed, we've got that scheduled for May 25th. Anticipated budget adoption is on June 1st. And on August 17th, staff will come back to council with the 22-23 budget book. This concludes staff's presentation. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Historically, we've always had the budget book in May and June as we analyze the budget and ultimately approve it. What's the rationale for not providing one?
Because last year, I mean, if you prepare the whole binder, you've got the table of contents, you've got 100 or how many pages you have, and then council makes a change in the budget, or they want something additional, something less, whatever, then we have to go back and change every single page in the budget binder. And so this way, it happened last year at the last budget hearing. Several items were added to the budget book, and one of them was a salary allocation, and so it changed every department's budget because the way the allocations are spread out. So we had to go back and change the whole budget binder in order. Every page had to be changed. So this way, if we bring all the documentation prior to when the budget book is prepared, then this way, it'll be all the same information that's in the budget book. You'll have all the department budgets, you'll have the, entire revenue and expense budgets, all the detail. But by preparing the book after the last budget hearing or after everything is approved, then we can make sure all the changes are in the budget book and we don't have to redo it.
Okay, I just always viewed the book as something that we sort of worked on together, and then once it's approved,
Right.
at that point, why would we need the book?
Right, so, well, I think the budget binder is a really important piece of the budget. But you'll be able to work, you'll have all the documentation right in front of you. It'll essentially be the documentation that was included in the budget binder, but it won't be.
So what would not be in it?
You're not gonna have a table of contents, you're not gonna have all the different.
The narrative?
The narrative will be there.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have the city manager narrative, we'll have the revenue narrative. It's just not gonna include, there's a lot of things that go into that budget binder besides what's, the detail of the actual budget numbers. There's the table of contents, there's the glossary, but there's also, every page is numbered, so, and then there's schedules for each particular department. And then the table of contents refers to those departments. It just becomes, it was, all the years I've been here, we've always had to go back and change the entire budget book after the budget was approved, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions? I have a question regarding, just a second. Capital improvement project, that would be separate or?
Yeah, and
Okay.
we're actually gonna do the Public Works and Capital Improvement budget study session separate, because what happens is they, after we've done the general fund, there's a lot of conversation on the general fund, and they tend to get bypassed a little bit, so we want that to be a separate study budget session.
Okay.
So.
That are possibly in the August or
No,
June or
that'll be in May.
in the May?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All
you'll
right.
have the two budget study sessions, one for the general fund and then one for Public Works and CIP.
All right.
Okay, and then we can have a third one if there's still questions, so.
Thank you so much. And if no any in the comments, I will open to public. Okay. Larry, it's your turn.
Thank you, Larry Barnett again. It sounds like a pretty rigorous process, and I wish you luck. From the public's standpoint, what I would like to see available as information is some of the following. The transfers line in the city financial figures, as it's presented, for example, later on tonight in the agenda, is just a single number. And I'm hoping in the budget process that transfer information will be broken out into the specific components that comprise what the transfers include. I'm also concerned about a focus on the enterprise funds. In the presentation that was made, it was clearly stated that the enterprise funds operate essentially as standalone businesses, which are entitled to charge based only on the cost of the delivery of the service. In the case of the water fund, it would be the cost of the water and the maintenance of the infrastructure and the labor associated with maintaining the service. I would like to see what percentage of the general fund budget and other fund budgets are being allocated to the water fund. I know in the past, the city manager's budget, if I recall correctly, was allocated as much as 40% of the city manager's budget was allocated to the water fund. I may be wrong, but that's my recollection, which seems extraordinarily high to me. I very much doubt the city manager spends 40% of his or her time managing the water enterprise fund. The point is also that the enterprise fund, the water enterprise fund in particular, the last budget round with the auditor had to recognize the $500,000 debt to the general fund, and I haven't seen anything about a repayment schedule or been able to identify any numbers in the financial materials that are passed out to the council that shows a repayment of that general fund money. I think actually that the ratepayers are the ones who should get that $500,000 from the water fund, which the city has acknowledged was incorrectly transferred. As it pertains to the cemetery fund, going all the way back to when I was on the council, the cemetery generally was subsidized by the general fund to the tune of $70,000 to $100,000 a year. I believe when the auditors look at the cemetery fund and its relationship to the general fund, it's going to tell you that the cemetery fund is likely to not have the capacity to repay what is probably $500,000 of indebtedness to the general fund at this point in time, and therefore they will have you write it off as they did the council previously when I served on it. So these kind of details are things that I'd be looking for and hope that they would be included in the budget review. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonnet. Any more public comments? If not, do you want to answer Larry's question or?
Well, I was just going to say that the $500,000 was paid off, and it was, I could go back and we can get the resolution. It was paid off with interest, so, for the water fund, yeah.
Yeah, my memory also tells that is right. We already paid back, and also the city issued an invoice for some release service or something like that. Paid it back. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. That is a very good presentation, and also the welcome to our city team. Yeah, great presentation. Thank you. Let's move to a next agenda item. That is number 4, consent calendar. First of all, I would like to pull off 4.3 for individual discussion. Any other item agenda need to change or move? If not, all right, we can take a motion. We pull out.
I move that we approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 4.3.
Second?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mayor Ding and council, you didn't do public
Oh,
comment?
public comments, yeah. I'm so sorry. So right now it's for public comments for that is consent agenda. If you have any item you want to put out for individual discussion, right now it's your time. Today we have the 6 items. All right. So if the yeah, let's try to get a roll call, please.
Just to reiterate, the first was Vice Mayor Barnett and the second was by Councilmember
Councilor Agramonte.
Thank you. Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Ding?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right. So let's discuss about agenda number 4.3, consideration, discussion, and a possible action to accept in the City of the Sonoma Housing Element 2021 annual progress report and direct staff to distribute California Department of Housing and Community Development and Governor's Office of the Planning and the Research. I believe that is the. All right. Thank you, Christine.
Hi, thank you so much. Let me see if this works first. Yay! Well, for once, I'm here to share some really good news with the council, not going over boring zoning code amendments, which we will do later on tonight. But as part of the city's responsibilities, we're required to submit an annual report to the state, documenting our progress on our housing element implementation. This is submitted every year on April 1st. And this slide shows the progress that we've made to date. So we have 2 years left in our housing element cycle. And at this point, we have met or exceeded the housing production in every single category. So for our very low income, we have met our requirement of 24 units. For our low income, we have exceeded our allocation of 23 units with 35 units. That's 152% of what we've been required to provide by the state. For moderate income units, and a lot of these are our accessory dwelling units, as well as deed restricted units that are implemented through our inclusionary housing program. And we have exceeded this with 41 units, where 27 were required, and that's 152%. So overall, the city of Sonoma is in excellent shape as far as our housing report goes. In general, these few bullets summarize what programs the city implements as far as the implementing the housing element. So we permit new housing units through the building permit process. The planning department processes housing development applications. We have processed numerous zoning code amendments to streamline housing and to support affordable housing. And on an ongoing basis, we implement the city's affordable housing program. And we've also initiated our 6-cycle housing element process. So to summarize this one, we issued this year 108 certificates of occupancy for 40 units of very low income housing, 10 units of low income housing, and 5 units of moderate income housing, as well as 15 accessory dwelling units. So for our teeny tiny little city, 108 housing units, that's 108 families that have moved into affordable housing. And our current program has approximately 399 units, our affordable housing program. And so to add 108 units total citywide, that's a huge accomplishment. The major planning applications that the city has been working on have been the Hummingbird Cottages on 5th Street West. Sweetwater Spectrum added a new duplex to support adults with autism. The Montaldo Apartments are on, oh, sorry, that got a little mixed up. Montaldo Apartments are on Highway 12. We also have the SB 35 application for 1st Street East that has been in process, and a small mixed-use project at Jack's Diner. And I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge the hard work of our zoning code ad hoc. So a huge thank you to council members Barnett and Felder. Over the last year, City Council has approved 7 zoning code amendments. That's a total of 25 public hearings in a year. That's quite an accomplishment. We approved a new accessory dwelling unit ordinance, cleaned up our site coverage and planning area standards, amended our appeal fees, and most notably, the City Council passed the most restrictive inclusionary housing ordinance in the state that I'm aware of. We're getting calls from all over the state for information on what we did and how we did it. And so when the City of Los Angeles and City of Santa Barbara city attorneys are calling us looking for a direction on affordable housing, I take that as a big win. So we also passed our SB 9 urgency ordinance and a timeshare ordinance. As I mentioned briefly, our affordable housing program is about 400 units citywide. And the most notable accomplishment this year for that is that we've engaged Rise Housing. So over the years, our program has grown and grown, and we're bringing somebody in from the outside who's an expert to do 100% compliance on all of our units to make sure that the people who really need it are getting the benefit of those units. And my colleague Wendy Atkins has been hard at work on the housing element. And during this year, we selected our housing consultant and had some joint sessions with City Council, Planning Commission, and Design Review. And this will really be getting kicked off in 2022, but we definitely got a good start on that. So we'll definitely be finishing up the housing element and following up with some more zoning code amendments. Coming soon before City Council will be multifamily objective design standards, regular SB 9 ordinance, and a regular timeshare ordinance. We're also working on a reorganization of our zoning code to try to make it as easy as possible for developers to navigate our process. And that's the end of my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Questions? Question?
So on the SB 9, right now we just have an emergency ordinance. Where in at the moment it says that it should be an affordable unit that's built. Where would that fit on the chart that you had?
Let me bring that up. And so these numbers are all coming down from the regional housing needs allocation. The state gives us certain goals to meet. So our next 6 cycle is going to be 311 units total. So it's going to be about double. So where these would come in is in every single income category, depending on whether the unit would be an ownership unit or a rental unit. So we would have structured it to parallel our adopted ordinance, which hits every single category.
Okay, so it could go into any of those categories depending on how the owner creates them.
Correct. So our ordinance structures rental units to be extremely low, very low, low. And then our ownership unit is low, moderate, and middle.
Okay, and to date, at last time we asked, there weren't any applications on SB 9. Are we seeing any of that?
We've had several tentative parcel maps that are coming in, but we haven't had any SB 9 applications.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Christina, is there any update on whether we are still on the list for SB 35? I noticed there's an application in there that wants to use SB 35, and obviously that's a new state law that, you know, for lack of a better term, punishes cities that aren't meeting their regional housing needs assessment. Clearly we are, yet we're still on the list.
So my
Let me
understanding
interrupt.
is that the way the state looked at SB 35, they picked the middle point of the housing element cycle. So at the middle point of the housing element cycle, we had not made enough progress in our moderate and market rate unit houses. And so pretty much every jurisdiction in the state is on the list for SB 35 qualifying at different category levels. And at the end of this housing cycle, it'll get revised again.
If I can just add to that, the fact that we now have met all of our RENA numbers means that for the 6th cycle, we will not be on the list. And they will do a readjustment midway through the 6th cycle. What's the gap, what's the distance between 2023 and 2031? Somewhere in there, do the math. That's when they'll reevaluate to see if we're compliant with that.
So we're on the list. So when do we come off the list?
As soon as we get the 6th cycle in place, they'll do an evaluation to take us off the list. Taking us off the list is a done deal because we've met our numbers already.
So is that in next year or?
As soon as we adopt our new element, yeah.
So 2023?
Yeah.
Okay. And that building permits translates to that list, correct?
Yes.
Because I believe we had already approved enough, but since they hadn't started the project or hadn't applied for building permits.
So what counts for this process is when building permits are issued.
Correct.
And if you look at what the city of Sonoma approves over time, it's very cyclical. So some years we'll approve a lot, sometimes we won't approve very many because we're so small. The projects aren't turning over as consistently as with a larger city. So for example, the data that I presented was how many certificates of occupancy we, which was 108. Well, we approved 6 ADUs. So what we get credit for this year is 6 ADUs. And so it just, some years we have a lot and some years we have a little. What we had going through the past few years were several large projects. So we're getting these numbers from the Alta Madrona project, from the Oliva Apartments, and from the Mockingbird. So we've gotten a big bump from those projects.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that at the halfway point of that cycle, we had approved enough units to not be on that list. But
Correct.
because they go by building permits and because there's obviously a gap there, we're on the list. And so
Correct.
I think there's an
as far as
oversight in this law.
As far as the planning process, the city had approved the projects to meet our arena numbers. There was a delay with Saha obtaining their grant funding, and so
Right.
that 1-year delay is what caused those units to be counted for 2019 and not for 2018.
And the law is designed to punish cities that aren't producing housing, and we approved all the units to not be on that list. I just wanted to make that point.
Any other questions?
I think this is a question.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you for your report. Yeah, basically that is we'd like to, great presentation. Right now it's time for us to open to the public. Oh, that's good.
Seeing none.
Seeing none. Yeah, we have done more discussion. Get back to our city council. Basically, this is the very comprehensive report for our in the past years, housing efforts made by our in the city government. I would like to say it's itemized all our accomplishments during the past year. We look at the numbers or meet requirement, even exceed those kind of requirements. It's just like Christina said, it's a small town, but we're not doing fine. I think in this item we should have a motion, right?
I'll move adoption.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes.
I just saw
Yeah.
something and I wanted to highlight for our city because I think it's huge.
Yes.
Throughout the state of California, for many years as I've been going through these cycles, it's almost guaranteed, nailed on, that just about every jurisdiction meets the above moderate because it's a market rate and they can produce that day in, day out. When you look at our numbers, we have satisfied the very low, the low, and the moderate first. And you look at how well you've done that as compared to the above moderate, it's a hats off to the city of Sonoma. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Well, that's why I moved approval to Mr. Storr. Thank you for making such a fine point on my motion.
And I have a comment. I would like to congratulate the Zoning Development Code Ad Hoc Committee. I was roughly taken off of that for reasons. For real reasons.
It was a coup, right? Yeah.
It was a coup. And I am so happy. I thanked you for saying, Madeline, we'll just do it, okay? Yeah, fine. So I appreciate that, and I really congratulate you. A lot of hard work went into that, so I appreciate that. I think there was a motion.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
All right, yeah, roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, let's move forward to the next item. That is 5, the public hearing. Today we have the two, 5.1 and 5.2. Yeah, we just did a little bit of warm-up exercises. We've just finished in the 4.3, right? All right, 5.1, that is a discuss, consider, and take a possible action to introduce an ordinance amending Sonoma Municipal Code, Title 19, Chapter 19.56, Permit Implementation, Time Limits, Extensions, Chapter 19.81, Appeals, and Chapter 1992, Definitions, to add a procedure for applicants to request a hearing before the Planning Commission to determine the continued validity of the permit or approval, or whether or not a permit of approval has expired or will be expired. Align the timeline for the appeals with the current permit implementation standards and clarify the various definitions related to developmental projects. The proposed amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Act, that is SECA, pursuant to the Section 15061, the B3, General Rule of the SECA Guidelines. Come back again.
I
That's
know.
Great.
It's the
Thank
Christina
you.
show tonight. I will keep this one shorter. It's zoning code amendments are not quite as exciting as patting ourselves on the back for doing a great job for affordable housing. But this item is a continuation of the efforts for the last 2 years to clean up our zoning code. And for the newer members of City Council, our last comprehensive zoning code update was in 2003. And what has been done previously is we waited a really long time and got a really, really comprehensive update and brought everything at once. And so we've been working with the ad hoc to kind of take more bite-sized chunks. And so the bite-sized chunk that is before you this evening is 1956, 1984, and 1992. The Planning Commission also reviewed modification amendments to Chapter 1948, parking and loading standards, but they had some suggestions for additional changes and some direction to staff. So that item is not before you this evening. And the goal for the amendments to 1956 is to provide clarification regarding hearings on use permit and other entitlement expirations. 1984 appeals is to align with prior modifications regarding permit implementation dates. It was a change going from just however many days to specifying business days to clarify when a permit is valid and when an appeal needs to be filed. And then amendments to 1992 definitions. And apologies, that top bullet is not correct. The roadways will be postponed to another date. There's just some missing miscellaneous definitions that have been giving the Planning Commission trouble over the years, and staff and members of the public as well, including better defining garages and carports and missing a definition for lot pad graded area. So we'll be cleaning those up. And the next steps are to hopefully introduce the ordinance this evening and bring the item back for adoption on April 20th, and it would go into effect 30 days later on May 20th. That's the end of my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Coding expert, yeah. All right, experts.
Well, in
Yeah,
honor of
yeah.
these two
Yeah.
honor of these two gentlemen, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I read everything.
Yeah.
And I marked everything up, and now I totally understand it, and I really appreciate, this is hard work, so I appreciate your being so committed to this. Thank you so much, Councilmember Felder and Vice Mayor.
I would do the same thing. I appreciate you. And not only just the technical, and also you should have the passion and your love to out in the city. Because in each in the code, we are preparing that in some way we're going to shape out in the future. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's open to the public.
Well, no one's.
Yeah, no. Mr. Larry, do you have anything to? Okay.
Seeing no one rise.
Because we already did a lot of the thing.
Right.
Yeah, that is the reason why it says thank you again.
Yeah, and I just want to thank staff, Planning Director Storr and Christina Tierney. They did a lot of work on this, so thank you. And also thank you to the Planning Commission for their thorough review as well.
All right, so we need to take a motion, right? We will,
You need to close the public.
all right, yeah. If there are no more public comments, I want to close it. I want to bring it back to take a motion.
I'll make a motion to introduce the ordinance amending the Sonoma Municipal Code, Title 19, Chapter 1956, Section, well, we don't have to go through it, Chapter 1984, and Chapter 1992.
Who's second?
Oh, I'll wait for Vice Mayor. Would you like to second?
Yeah, you.
I second.
Yes. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Let's move on. 5.2, discuss, consider, and take a possible action to introduce an ordinance amending the Sonoma Municipal Code, amending the Title 19, Section 19, 10.020, B3, residential component, and the Section 19, 010, 020C2 residential component to the City of the Sonoma Municipal Code. And finally, this action is exempt from the further environment review under the general rule in the California Environment Quality Act, SEQA, guideline section 15061B3. The SEQA only applies to projects that have the potential for causing a significant effect on the environment. Christina, again,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're going to be sick of me. So this evening, we are here to discuss potential amendments to the Sonoma Municipal Code regarding Section 1910, which is our zones and allowable uses. And this section of the code establishes zoning districts for the entire city of Sonoma, including residential, commercial, gateway commercial, and mixed use. The commercial and mixed use zoning districts include a requirement for a residential component. Both of these districts include subjective language, which states that should normally, and also includes a waiver process. Per SB 35, the city is prohibited from applying subjective standards to housing development projects. And this issue has come up on several projects lately where the implementation by staff, applicants, and the Planning Commission has been unclear. And so the goal this evening is to come up with an ordinance that will eliminate that subjectivity. So this is the existing language in our code. So I'll read first the commercial zoning district. So residential component. In applications for new development on properties of 1/2 acre in size or larger, for which a discretionary permit is required, a residential component is required. That's very clear, unless waived by the Planning Commission. A residential component should normally comprise at least 50% of the total proposed building area. Circumstances in which the residential component may be reduced or waived include, but are not limited to, include the following: the replacement of a commercial use within an existing tenant space with another commercial use, the presence of uses or conditions incompatible with residential development on or adjacent to the property for which a new development is proposed, property characteristics, blah, 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 limitations imposed by other regulatory requirements such as the growth management ordinance. And the language is very similar for mixed use, except it doesn't have the 1/2 acre size requirement. So staff has been through quite a bit of work on this since last year. Staff drafted proposed amendments in conjunction with the city attorney's office. Those amendments were reviewed by the ad hoc committee in January of 2020. The revisions were brought forth to the Planning Commission in February of 2022, and the proposed language eliminated the subjectivity and also expanded options for both commercial and mixed use zones for not a waiver per se. It was basically a residential plan, which we'll go into in a little bit more detail later. The draft was reviewed by the Planning Commission, and staff was directed to come back in March, and the proposed language in March required that a residential component shall comprise 50% of the total proposed building area, and also included examples of how the calculation should be made. And we are now here before you this evening to discuss the draft that was recommended by the Planning Commission. So in February, the Planning Commission direction was to simplify the proposed recommendations to allow for an in lieu fee to be paid instead of building some of the residential development on site, and not to allow the suite of options that was originally proposed by staff, which included land dedications, off-site construction, acquisitions, and rehabilitation and conversion of existing market rate units to affordable units. In March, staff came back with the recommendations and direction, and the Planning Commission updated and revised its recommendation and kept the in lieu fee option for the commercial zone only, but took that out of mixed use, and stated that the residential component shall comprise 50%. For mixed use, they eliminated the in lieu fee and changed the 50% requirement to 80% and limited commercial development to 20%. So overall, the commercial zoning district as proposed and before this city council this evening, it would amend the language to remove the subjectivity. It does add example calculations. It removes the ability of the planning commission or city council to waive or reduce the requirements for a residential component on a project by project basis. It removes the commercial component waiver process. It allows the in lieu fee in commercial. And for mixed use, again, eliminates the subjectivity, and the example reflects the 80% direction, and again, removes the ability of the planning commission or city council to waive, reduce, or to have alternatives to the requirement of housing being built on site, and no option for in lieu fees. So that's a very wordy way of saying that I think this issue has been looked at good and hard, and what we're looking to the council this evening is to either adopt the ordinance as written, and should the city council wish to explore some of the options that have been explored previously by staff and ad hoc, we have the options for the residential component plan on the screen this evening. I'm not going to read that whole thing. And so the next steps are for council to consider either the ordinance as drafted or to have additional discussions about some of the other alternatives that have been proposed. Concludes my presentation. Are there questions for staff?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, and perhaps this is best answered by our city attorney. There was a concern raised that some of the changes recommended by the Planning Commission have the effect of rezoning. Was that discussed at the Planning Commission level? And if so, how was that discussed? And is a categorical exemption through CEQA appropriate?
It was discussed. I don't know if at length it was discussed, but it certainly was discussed, and the effect of the proposal was understood. I think one of the opponents to this proposal, Attorney Michael Woods, has raised the issue of whether or not that causes the zone to actually be changed, and thus an exemption under CEQA would be inappropriate. I think that's an important issue that needs to be researched. I've not researched that issue, but it's one that I think that needs to be looked at, because it's my understanding that the effect of the Planning Commission's recommendation is to require in the mixed-use zone 80% residential. And whether or not that is something that transforms the intent of that zone is a little unclear to me, because I don't have a history of its actual implementation. Meaning, I don't know over the last 5, 10, 15 years whether mixed-use projects have typically resulted in that type of percentage of mix. I don't know that. But it would seem to me it'd be something to look at and may in fact trigger a more heightened CEQA analysis.
Now, I believe a few years ago we changed something in the mixed-use zone where you could have 100% residential. Would that affect any of the CEQA review if our ordinance does currently allow that?
I don't know.
Because the questions that were raised in the letter you described, were interesting questions, and I just want to make sure we're doing the right level of environmental review.
I think they're significant, and as a matter of fact, if the council is inclined to adopt what the commission is proposing, I would ask that you delay that action until I've had a chance to look at that more carefully.
So just in looking at the proposed ordinance from staff, did you notice any significant legal concerns that we should also be aware of?
This is the one that lays out the alternatives?
Correct.
The only concern I have is that proposal is it retains some of the old language about waiver or reducing the residential component requirement. And then it has 3 or 4 criteria that are listed under it that I think retain some of the subjectivity problems that we now know that the state planning law is condemning. If in fact the council really wants to use those as alternatives, I don't think we need to include all that language about waiver and reducing. I think there's compatibility as one of the criteria. I think we could remove those and just simply insert the alternatives, and they are what they are, whether they reduce or retain the residential component requirement. I don't know. My sense is that at least from the staff's recommendation early on, it was more of an equivalency effort rather than to reduce or waive. Now, if the council really wishes to retain the right to waive this residential component altogether, then we need to come up with some objective standards that would guide that discretion, that exercise of discretion on a going forward basis. That we don't have.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, obviously, for example, could you waive the residential requirement if the applicant was a nonprofit organization? Can you treat nonprofit organizations differently than for-profit
In certain circumstances,
applicants?
In certain circumstances, you can. Now, I think it would make more sense to waive it based upon what the proposal is. If the nonprofit is coming forward with an all 100% affordable housing project, for example, then a waiver might be very appropriate in terms of waiving the commercial component in a mixed-use development. Yes, I think that would be something that would be supportable. If it's just because they're a nonprofit and they don't have a lot of money and gosh, we feel sorry for them, I'm not sure that would work. But,
Although I think it's only for the residential component.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
so
true.
obviously an affordable housing proposal would satisfy regardless.
Yes, you're right about that. I think it'd be problematic to distinguish them the waiver based on the nature of the applicant.
Any more comments? Questions? Let me open to public.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Michael Woods, an attorney and resident of Sonoma. My office is at 846 Broadway. I'm here this evening on behalf of Lat 33 Capital, which owns MacArthur Place Hotel, the former Sonoma Truck and Auto site across the street, and the adjacent duplex at 100 East MacArthur, all in the mixed-use zoning district. As detailed in the correspondence that I sent you yesterday, we support adoption of an ordinance incorporating staff's original February 10 recommendation to the Planning Commission with the changes suggested by the city attorney regarding the flexibility issue and compatibility issues. The recommendation would retain the city's flexibility to consider projects in the commercial and mixed-use zoning districts on their individual merits and grant approvals of alternative means of addressing the housing component requirement in the discretion of the city, but subject to objective criteria as set forth in the recommendation. That recommendation incorporates and expands criteria used over many years for granting a change in the housing component requirement and adds the potential for off-site construction, conversion of market rate housing, and payment of an in lieu fee. We support affordable housing. We commend the Commission and the Council for your efforts to achieve it, but we believe it can be accomplished through the recommended approach from staff and reasonable fees to create it. We oppose the recommendation of the Planning Commission since under that approach the city's discretion would be severely limited or non-existent. At least 80% of any new development in the mixed-use district would have to be residential, and there would be no possibility of changing or satisfying that requirement even by payment of an in lieu fee. That would effectively preclude a hotel-related use at the truck and auto site, which would build on the success of MacArthur Place and add revenues to the city's general fund and housing trust fund. And any new development on commercial properties of a half acre or larger, under the Commission's recommendation, would have to include a residential component equal to the proposed commercial square footage or payment of a fee equal to the cost of constructing the residential component elsewhere. Assuming land acquisition and construction costs estimated at between $600 and $900 per square foot from estimates I've been given this week, a new commercial addition of 5,000 square feet would either have to incorporate a 5,000 square foot residential component on site or pay a fee of between $3 and $4.5 million, which is clearly prohibitive. The Commission's recommendation, in my view, is inconsistent with the city's general plan, which recognizes the availability of a satisfying the housing component in a conditional use permit proceeding, and the general plan controls over zoning, not the other way around. I think inadequate notice has been given to property owners in the mixed-use and commercial districts for a recommendation that not literally, but would have the practical effect of rezoning mixed-use districts to residential and large commercial properties to mixed use. No notice was given to that. There's an 1/8 of a page ad published in the paper that simply mentions the code sections that were under consideration. So I would suggest that the commission recommendation not be accepted respectfully, and that the council adopt an ordinance that would implement the staff's original recommendation, which I understand also went through the ad hoc committee, and move forward with an ordinance in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Good evening, Mayor Ding and members of the City Council. My name is Carol Marcus, 873 First Street West. What the Planning Commission is proposing is not a departure from what has existed in Sonoma's development code for at least 20 years. It's just clearer, which is what the state has asked for. As currently defined in the development code, a mixed-use zone is predominantly a residential zone. In the current language, the commercial component may be required, but a residential component is required. In the commercial zone, the existing language reads that 50% minimum of the project area is to be devoted to housing. The Planning Commission is simply clarifying existing language by removing the waiver of the housing requirement. The proposal that the planning staff has put before you is not to, quote, offer flexibility to the housing community, as their recommendation to you states. It is to offer flexibility to the commercial development community so that they may choose options rather than to include the required housing in their development projects, which is no guarantee that housing will be built at all. Because of the existence of the waivers, there is perception that flexibility to provide housing already exists in the commercial and mixed-use zones, resulting in almost every applicant in these zones requesting a housing waiver. This is what has led to the over-speculation of commercial and mixed-use parcels in Sonoma. By removing the waivers for providing housing, applicants would clearly understand what is currently required in these zones. What we have in Sonoma is a housing shortage, or at least that's what we've talked about having. There is a large segment of our community who cannot afford a single-family home here, nor do they qualify for capital A affordable housing. This includes young singles, young families, empty nesters, and seniors. Sonoma needs to provide a range of housing types for these community members, many of whom would love the opportunity to be able to live in the city's center, which is what is envisioned in Sonoma's general plan. I'm sure you've all read today's Index Tribune about the declining enrollment in Sonoma's schools, due in large part to the high cost of housing here. This should be very concerning to you. In 10 years, school enrollment is projected to be half of what it was when my kids were going to school here. I don't believe Sonoma is at risk of becoming a bedroom community, as has been purported. What we are at risk of is not becoming a community at all. We're at risk of is not becoming a community at all, but a community comprised of second homeowners, tourists, and commuting service workers. I urge you to require developers in the commercial and mixed-use zones to comply with Sonoma's existing development code and removing the housing waivers as the Planning Commission has recommended, so that more housing is available to more segments of Sonoma's community.
Thank you, Carol.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Bill Hooper with Kenwood Investments at 144 West Napa Street. The Planning Commission's version of the ordinance is effectively a rezone. The history of the waiver has happened time and again, and our proposal that's been before the city for over 10 years now has been asking for that waiver. We introduced it in a time where this city desperately needed jobs, and those days may come again, and so the council should leave that flexibility in. I saw the color-coded map earlier and how little red zoning there is, especially those of over a half acre. So why tie your hands when the merits of an individual project may warrant not crowding the property with housing? Given that housing is a priority, we have developed our proposal and are working with a property on Broadway, a 5-acre parcel that could house up to 100 low-income units. We've been working on this for 5 years and collecting urban growth credits or growth management credits to finally be able to propose this project. Kenwood has brought in Burbank Housing to help develop this with us, and the funding that would come out of an approved hotel project would very much make this happen. Over the last 5 years, we've been wanting to introduce this, haven't been able to until we got enough credits. We're now ready to proceed with it. Staff's ordinance allows us this flexibility. The Planning Commission does not. An in-lieu fee or the ability to build elsewhere could actually accelerate the development of housing. We would urge you to stick with the original staff recommendation and allow yourselves the flexibility to approve or disapprove projects with or without housing in the commercial zones. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for allowing me. I just want to speak. I'm Rich Wallach, Senior Director of Housing Finance and Business Development for Burbank Housing. We have been working with Kenwood, God, it's like 2 years, feels like, on this property at 20540 Broadway, and have a plan that we've been tweaking. We look forward to bringing it to you in the future. That is for at least 100 and possibly more, depending on the density bonus that would be allowed by the Plan Commission and Council for the development, and that would be predominantly affordable housing. At least 100 units of that would be at 80% or less of AMI. So that property is within the urban growth boundary, but it would have to go through an annexation process, and we look forward to that. My understanding is from hearing all about all this is that the ordinance as it stands now would not allow them to be able to provide funding to the affordable housing project in order to build their hotel, and if the city had that type of funding, because it's a large site and a large project, we wouldn't have to look to other developers to work with us to build these things, but that is the nature of affordable housing these days. So I think our understanding is without that type of funding, this project couldn't go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warwick.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Joe Walsh. I live at 9128 East Mountain Spring Road in Scottsdale, and I am the LAT 33 development representative. As you know, our company owns MacArthur Place Hotel, has recently acquired 870 Broadway, the former truck and auto site, and has also recently acquired the duplex that sits between at 100 East MacArthur. What you're considering tonight is of utmost importance to us, as we just acquired both 870 Broadway and 100 East MacArthur. Our companies had an excellent relationship with the city of Sonoma, from the commissions to the staff, and we've enjoyed it. We've been in town since 2017, when we acquired MacArthur Place Hotel from Suzanne Brigham. In that time, our group has invested $30 million above the purchase price in MacArthur Place Hotel. Currently, we have an investment of $10 million planned for 2022 that includes 5 of the recently entitled guest rooms, a spa and new pool project, and those projects are currently undergoing. To give a comparison of the general fund, which was talked about in the budget prior to our arrival and with our arrival, in the last full year before our ownership group owned MacArthur Place Hotel, the hotel generated, when adjusted at a 13% TOT, $700,000 into the general fund for the city of Sonoma. This year, with COVID in the beginning of the year and the bounce back since then, we will generate $1,600,000 into the general fund for the city of Sonoma, and that does not include any of the new rooms which wouldn't come online, the 5, until the following year. That's a 127% increase in funds to go to the city to use the funds as they wish. I understand 1% of the funds has historically been used for the Housing Trust Fund. Given this great relationship, our company invested $5 million. We bought 870 Broadway and the duplex parcel next to it. Both of them are zoned mixed use. They're in the mixed use zone. The parcel comes with strings attached to it. We understood the history of the parcel. It had environmental cleanup issues that have come to a head in 2021. It then was assigned to the oversight of the Department of Toxic Soil Containment. We've entered into an agreement with the Department of Toxic Soil Containment to work on the cleanup of the site. As you know, the site for about 100 years was an automotive service site, which means gasoline, oil, paint into the soils. We anticipate that the cost to clean up the site is $3 to $4 million. The cleanup of the buildings on a cosmetic side is a small portion of that.
Excuse me, Mr. Walsh, time. You can speak in 30 seconds.
We are not certain at this time if the parcel will meet the residential component or the residential threshold for the DTSC. Our company is a merchant bank and has the capital to produce a plan to develop the site. We believe it would generate $1.5 million in transient occupancy tax should it be developed in the future. And the final point is we have quite an investment to clean up the site environmentally as well as the buildings. Should the council adopt the ordinance as recommended, we would have to rethink any investment that we would make in the cleanup of the site, from the demolition of the buildings to the environmental cleanup. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Good evening. My name's Michael Ross, 245 Patton Street, Sonoma, California, principal architect at Ross Drillis Kuzenberry Architecture. Thank you for hearing this matter, and we're also appreciative of the Planning Commission's consideration of it earlier. I have concerns about the Planning Commission's recommendation, which I'd like to cover this evening. The authenticity and vitality of Sonoma is supported by its diverse and textured land use designations, architecture, and people. I would like to voice my support for your approval of the staff proposed alternatives for the housing component in the mixed use and commercial zones, which will help maintain this diversity in our town. The menu of alternatives proposed by staff will offer a variety of means for the city to address the unique issues that arise within a tightly bound infill city. Continuing to allow variety and diversity of land use types within the mixed use zone is one means to avoid the homogenization of Sonoma into a potential bedroom community. The Planning Commission's proposal changes to the housing component affects a large mixed-use area almost a mile long on both sides of Broadway. It essentially removes mixed from mixed-use zone and mandates all future new construction on mixed-use lots to be 80% residential. There are about 393 mixed-use properties in the city right now, and I doubt that many property owners are even aware of this proposal or this meeting tonight. This is a top-down, retroactive rezoning of the mixed-use area without the consent or vetting by the private property owners. This is not the way to build consensus around housing solutions in Sonoma. Regarding the proposed Planning Commission's fee calculus, imagine discovering construction costs have doubled on your property when the Planning Commission's in lieu fee calculus is applied. A likely unintended consequence of the Planning Commission's in lieu fee approach would be to place a chill on commercial construction on commercial lots over 1/2 acre in size. Please consider the implementation of a more reasonable economic analysis study to establish an in lieu fee that would not stop construction and will allow for the Housing Trust Fund to continue to grow. I am the architect for the Sebastiani Theater restoration and expansion, and what we're talking about this evening has a potentially existential threat to a project there. The Sebastiani Theater is proposing to add approximately 4,800 square feet of new space to its over 1/2 acre commercial property. Building on housing on the site is a near impossibility, and therefore a waiver of the housing component or the payment of a reasonable in lieu fee will be necessary for that project. I would like to raise the importance of this because if the calculus of the Planning Commission's recommendation for the in lieu fee was applied to Sebastiani Theater, it would add between $3.5 and $4.2 million to the overall cost of the project above the construction cost, and these dollars will be coming from donors in our community. Thank you for your consideration of this issue tonight. I appreciate it.
Ms. Ross.
Hello, Council. My name is Roger Roten, and 1021 Central, and I'm the Executive Director of the Sebastiani Theater Foundation, and been involved with the theater for over 30 years, and it plays such an integral part in our community, and the plans that we have are necessary, even to comply with all the ADA regulations that we have today, and even just to try to make the theater a more viable place, and we can make it a better place to serve our community. And so it's a difficult task to raise the money that we're going to need to raise, and I am all for affordable housing, and I salute you for your efforts to find a way to make that happen. But I know that this particular thing would be detrimental to our project, and I feel very strongly about that, and I do want to see it go forward. And so I just would like to have you guys take that in consideration as something that you can understand our position and why we would like to have those other variances and other ways to look at this. So anyway, thank you for your time, and that's it.
Thank you, Roger.
Hello, my name is Prema Bien. I live at 338 East MacArthur. I am a business owner in town and the former president of the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation, as well as a representative for 2 historic properties, one on Broadway, which is where my office is at 725 Broadway, and then the Vallejo Castellana Adobe as well at 143 West Spain Street. And I agree that there has not been sufficient time or warning to any of the property owners in these zones to really understand what the impact would be to their properties. And I also think it's very important that we understand what the repercussions would be for preservation and for the sort of character of our town and what impact this would have on our historic resources. So I haven't really heard any mention of that. And, you know, if something were to happen at 725 Broadway and it, you know, heaven forbid, burned, or there's a catastrophe along Broadway, what would it look like after that? What would we be able to do? How could we rebuild? So I just think that that's a matter that's super important to me, and I know it is to you. I know that's just the nature of Sonoma. It's part of why we love this place so much. So I just want to caution that any changes not be made that would have rippling effects there. And I also asked that more time be given to property owners to understand what a change like this could mean. I would support the staff verbiage, but Planning Commission, I think there needs to be a lot more study. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
It's nice.
Good evening, council members. My name is Lou Braun. I reside at 871 First Street West in Sonoma. Tough call. I really empathize with each of you. On the one hand, this issue is all about housing and making housing a priority in Sonoma. On the other hand, this is a small town. I know some of these folks. This is not an easy decision. I do think that part of the impetus here is SB 330, which many consider overreach. The state is basically demanding the local jurisdictions and local communities like ours be objective in our development code. With all respect, when I look at staff's manual of alternatives, I don't see objective standards there, and maybe I'm missing something. I'm not a learned developer or real estate developer, but it seems like, what do I do? Pick option 1, 5, 7? What do we trade? It just seems extremely complex, and it seems like it is not in this spirit of what we're supposed to be doing now, which is moving forward with housing. I mean, SB 330 says prohibits the delay of new barriers via administrative or regulatory processes. That's SB 330. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? So I kind of bring it back to that, and bring it back to that housing is our first priority in Sonoma. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prong. Thank you again, everyone, your public comments. Let me close public comments right now. Yeah, and anything?
No, just making a note that we're closing the public hearing.
Yes, yeah, right now we are. Right now we are in the closing public hearing. Let me bring back to our city council for more discussion, and then the balance and the weighing, and see how we can find more common grounds. And then we just talk. Today, I appreciate it today. We have more business owners, developers, and came out to own the community. I appreciate it. You are very busy, and just like you said, you generate a lot of the income to own the city. That is true. TOT tax, sales tax are major items for other cities in the financials. Money is kind of the blood for our city in the running. And then we appreciate it. And also, our town is kind of small town. Our community and concern how we can develop and how we can keep all our residents, workers, teachers, police officers can live here and work here. Also, we need a concern. And this morning, Carol just mentioned on the newspaper saying it's very sad news. Our school enrollment rate continuing to decline. Yes, that is the issue. Housing issue in our city, in the valley, is the number one issues. That is based on all our agree and also based on the survey during the past years. So that we definitely today that we can gather together, find out how we can do it better. Yeah. So we can find a resolution to meet the most of people's requirements. You can generate more income, and also at the same time, we can garner more housing. That is my opening. Yeah, maybe you can tell them more. And yes.
Thank you, Mayor Ding, and thank you to everyone who spoke. And what the Planning Commission did was put the emphasis on housing, and I think that's right. I mean, we have a need. How we get there is the issue, and I heard tonight lots of different ways to meet that. I heard it in the report from staff. I heard it from members of the community that, there are many ways to meet this, and we should not close the doors to all of those different ways where we can meet these needs. I don't think one size fits all in just about everything, and I don't think it does in our codes either. I think there's also an assumption that within, I think somebody called it the city center, is where people want to live in the first place. And I would kind of push back on that a little bit. I don't live in the city center. I love walking to the city center, but as far as my family and what I want to do, I'm very happy to live on the furthest west part of Sonoma, and even then, I'm not really on the outskirts, as was stated at some point, because the city's only really 2 square miles. So the outskirts are not very far. It takes me 20 minutes to walk to the plaza. So I think making the assumption that if we took these commercial places and made them housing, that's, it might satisfy it on paper. We might say, yeah, look at how much we did. But is that really the best housing that we could offer to our community? And I question that. And so I don't like to assume that just because we can put something there, that that's the best place for it. When we had the SB 9 conversations, I pushed back strongly on the proposed regulations because I said you were doing everything you could. You were throwing spaghetti against the wall to try to figure out every possible way to discourage people from building those SB 9 units. I'm not in the business of wanting to discourage people from providing housing, whether it's under the SB 9, which I know is not the most perfect thing we've ever seen, but if people want to build them and those are houses, then that's probably something we should help them do. And I feel the same way about this. I feel like there's going to be the reverse is going to happen because people will walk away from projects because they don't really fit what they had designed to do, and then we're left with what? The Truck and Auto Center the way it is now? I don't think anybody likes that. We've heard it over and over again at these council meetings. In fact, they blame us. They say, how come you're not cleaning up this? I think Madeline and I at one meeting said, well, we'll get down there next weekend and see what we can do to help. I mean, it's like out of our hands, and then all of a sudden someone comes along and they're going to clean it up, and I'd like to see that place cleaned up. And I'd like to see that corner, which was always commercial. I taught across the street at Sonoma High School. It was always commercial over there. I'm not saying it's not a good place to also have housing, but if there are alternatives and if there are ways to provide resources for the city to maybe better place housing, then I don't know why that should be taken away from this council. I feel like our options are being limited. Not just the options of the developers, but the options of this council. and the options of the people of Sonoma who have other ideas that might be good ideas. So I don't know, kind of where we go from here is I'm hearing, thank you for the legal assessment. I think that I don't feel comfortable adopting anything tonight because I heard that there may be some legal considerations, certainly with the proposal from the Planning Commission, but also maybe even from the draft regulations that were proposed by staff. So I think that has to take place, and we have to make sure that we're not, running afoul of any legal technicalities. But I appreciate, I even in saying this, I appreciate that the Planning Commission is focused on housing. Because if somebody doesn't focus on housing, we might forget it. And so to that extent, I'm very, very happy that they did that, but I do feel like the options are important. And I think they're not just important for the people who want to build these projects. I think they're important for the people who want the housing in Sonoma. I think they deserve to have some options as well. So my druthers would be to sort of maybe send it back and see if we can come up with something that works for everybody, that has some options in there as staff described. And I'm certainly very concerned about the Sebastiani Theater. My son believes the candy counter is his personal domain, and so I would like to make sure that the Sebastiani Theater, and any other project like that we feel so strongly about in Sonoma is taken under consideration in what we're doing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, I try to bring joy and happiness to everyone because I just knew how to do that and not get my butt kicked in school. So the reason, what we've been offered here by the Planning Commission, I think is a big stretch. It's like a big bite. And as you have said, it's innovative and it's interesting, but there are a lot of other things to consider. I think it's so important that we think this through because, as you said, I don't want my hands tied by anything. It's a lot of work to do what we're doing here, and I cannot have that happen to me. We, the 5 people here, we're the end authority, and we've been advised to suggest something that's been suggested to us. It's interesting, we've been looking at issues at property outside of the city of Sonoma. Wonderful property that's available to this city. I think someone mentioned annexation. There are a lot of good things that are being brought to our attention, not necessarily just with one project, but other projects, because we realize that while we have done a great job on our housing element, there are still people that need and want to live here. So I certainly support that. However, at this point, I'd like to recommend that the council look at the range of alternatives that that our planning department has suggested to us, and see if we can't work something out. I think it's very important. I think it's important that we do have housing, and even though people say we're not doing a good job, we did a heck of a good job with meeting those requirements. So I would like to see it go back, as our council member Sandra Lowe suggested.
Thank you, Mayor Ding. I just want to point out, I think there's really been a sea change in the discussion here. I mean, years ago, the previous planning commission and previous city councils would often generally just waive the residential component. And that discussion sort of doesn't take place anymore. Now we're sort of talking about a menu of alternatives. And so I think that really there has been significant progress in the way Sonoma treats housing. I want to provide a little more context for why we're here. Councilman Felder and I are on the ad hoc Development Code Subcommittee. And this issue, the much lauded Development Code Subcommittee from earlier in the meeting. And this issue was sort of brought to us in the last few months because of, you know, an interesting Planning Commission meeting last summer, last August or September, when basically an in-lieu fee was imposed on MacArthur Place for the expansion of their, I believe they asked for 11 rooms. And sort of on this dais, sort of on the fly, a in-lieu fee was imposed on them. And, you know, some people criticized that. Some people thought this is great progress for our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But what was very obvious was we had really no sort of code or structure or approved fee schedule to do that. But what it really did was spark a discussion on how we handle this residential component and how we do that in a way that honors housing, and also do it in a way that is legal. And so staff brought to Councilman Felder and I some different ideas, and these are ideas that are, I believe you looked at Healdsburg and other cities in our area, and we thought, well, these are interesting. You know, we've never had an in-lieu fee for the residential component, which, by the way, is in addition to the housing impact fee. And we've also never had the off-site component. And we thought, in context with SB 330, that we have to objectify the code. We thought that this might be something worth discussing. And so, obviously, we went to the Planning Commission. And that's sort of why we're here. And so I think there's obviously a lot of things to consider. I used to be on the Planning Commission, as was Councilman Felder, and I think it's really important that we consider what they have to say, but then we also have to do that in the context now, as, you know, we have different things also to consider on the City Council. And these are really general plan questions. What Sonoma is, how we want Sonoma to grow, what we want Sonoma to be. These are general plan questions, and we haven't really updated the general plan in almost 20 years. And so once again, this is a reminder that I think we really do need to embark on that process again soon. But there are a lot of things to consider here. Timing for property owners, I think, is important. The question of rezoning, whether we've had proper environmental review. I know that was discussed on the Planning Commission, at the Planning Commission level. I just want to get that right. The unintended consequences. Obviously, the Sebastiani Theater issue is a very serious issue. The Sebastiani Theater is obviously, you know, a very important part of Sonoma. And I think it's very important that we allow, not necessarily a waiver, but, and this is why I asked the question about a nonprofit, you know, a situation like that we have to figure out legally in the code to avoid. You know, obviously, we shouldn't be writing the code for projects, but again, the unintended consequences of these recommendations have affected projects that are being discussed tonight. And if this is all about housing, and I don't know necessarily what the right answer to this question is, but I'm glad we're having this conversation. You know, there is that, I discussed it earlier, the sea change. There's this concept called the Overton window, where things that we did not even discuss 5 years ago we're now discussing. And so we've really shifted the discussion to the point where, you know, and I'm just asking the question, if we have a proposal that's a 100% hotel in a commercial zone, and then an affordable housing project is developed also in a commercial zone, and it's not 50-50-50-50, but 100-100, and they're all deed restricted, versus if it was 50% housing in this zone, it would only be 25% of that would be inclusionary. Is that a win for housing for Sonoma? I think some people would say it is. Some people would say it's not. That's not the right type of housing in Sonoma. That's not the way we want Sonoma to grow. I mean, I get both sides on that. In the mixed use zone, you know, something else, and this is sort of a stream of consciousness, so apologies in advance. In the mixed use zone, the Planning Commission has recommended that we don't have an in lieu fee, which I understand the impetus to promote housing, but if there's a way that in lieu fee could promote housing, is that worthy of discussion in the sense that, something the city council has to consider more than the planning commission has to consider is our budget and our economic state. As we learned budget 101 earlier, I think we're going to have a budget report after this. Healdsburg, for example, and I rarely like to bring up Healdsburg because we're so much better. But I was looking at their sales tax, and they have very similar demographics. They have very, similar population, et cetera. And in 2019, if you'll forgive me, their taxable sales in Healdsburg was 420 million, and ours was 275 million. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but money allows you to do things. Money allows you to create great affordable housing programs. And Healdsburg in our county is always sort of held up as the one city that has this great affordable housing programs. They buy I believe recently they bought an apartment building and deed restricted everything as affordable housing. And so I'm wondering if there's a way we can sort of thread the needle on this, because we've, in my view, moved very far on housing. And so, in addition, we've received our great housing report earlier. We've protected our neighborhoods from Airbnb, Picasso, but we still have people coming. And so do we need more hotel rooms? That raises the property. If you have an acre of housing, that's obviously very important. But an acre of commercial land, we have limited commercial land, as was discussed earlier. Not only do you have an increase in your property tax base, which we divide between the state and county, but you have that for residential and for commercial, but with commercial you also get an increase in sales tax and you get an increase in TOT. And so would the increase in revenue allow us to make better streets and better parks and more affordable housing programs? These are all very important questions. These are very important general plan questions. So ultimately, there are a lot of things to consider here. I just want to make sure we get this right. And I think the Planning Commission wants to get this right. And I also want to, as a former planning commissioner, want to adopt what the Planning Commission recommends. And so I would like to, along with Councilwoman Lowe and Agramani, send it back to you guys and think about all these issues in the context of how we have to look at this. Make sure that we have a full legal analysis on whether this is a potential rezoning, if we have proper environmental review, et cetera. And in a perfect world, I would like to do that as soon as possible. So I don't know if we have, if we can call a special meeting and then bring it back to us as soon as possible.
That's great.
This is an extremely difficult topic to take on, and I've thought long and hard on this whole concept. All of the years that I spent on the Planning Commission, I look back and I think that the way that we were able to get through most of the things and be successful was to look at a project when it came before us, and if they were going for a discretionary use permit, that it was important for the Planning Commission to have some of that discretion available, to write a development code that restricts without any options uses in the commercial or the mixed-use zone, to me is a mistake, because you lose that ability to react to an individual project, to react to an individual developer, to do something that is going to benefit the city as a whole in a far better way than just a simple set of rules. So in that regard, I would be very reluctant to eliminate the ability to have a waiver or an in lieu fee or the ability to build off-site, because I think these are important components that could work in a specific situation for a specific project and a specific developer. And if that benefits the city more than a simple set of rules, then I think we have to have those options available. So to me, there's no question that this has to go back for further review by, with taking into account our comments here by the Planning Commission. I'm hoping that the Planning Commission will reconsider the emphasis on providing housing to balance it with the greater good that we can get from other ways to create that housing. If I have the option to build 100 units and still keep a commercial property without any further penalty, it seems to me that's a viable option. At least it ought to be considered, not just dismissed. If I have, in good faith, purchased a property with a given set of rules, and I'm blown out of the water by a very significant change, which may or may not be a zoning change, I think that's an overreach which we shouldn't take without further discussion and discretionary review to look at the individual merits of a given project. So I just think that we have to take a step back. I appreciate what the Planning Commission is trying to do and they're trying to move forward on housing, but I also think we've got to take into account how we get there, like it's been said by other members of this council. So I certainly would like us to look at the list of alternatives that the staff has recommended. I realize that some of them are still subjective and that would have to be reworked, as our city attorney said. But I think there's a way out of this thing where we preserve options and we still produce a product that benefits the city the most. And so I want to send this back and have it looked at with these comments in mind, and see if we can keep open the various things that will allow us to benefit the city in the best way possible, to produce housing and to produce properties that will generate income for the city as well. Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, may I ask, is that by way of a motion? Is that what I'm hearing?
More discussion, yeah.
I would certainly leave it open for other discussion by other people, and I don't know how I would frame this motion at this point, but if there's further discussion, I'd love to hear from other council members as well.
I pretty much for sure that we have the same, similar,
I'm hearing a consensus among us to send, with all of our comments and feedback, to send it back to the Planning Commission is what I'm hearing from people. I just wanted to say to everyone, especially those who are, serve us on the Planning Commission, is that when I took on this office, I said, I want, you get $300 a month. And I asked if my $300 a month could please go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which it does. And, I'm doing that not because, that's a great sum of money, or that's, the great largesse of, Councilwoman Lowe. It's to send a message that I absolutely believe in it. And I thank you sincerely for making every possible attempt to increase affordable housing in Sonoma. I tell everybody I live on the, over my fence is the Puebla Serena Mobile Home Park, which is a affordable housing, high density development. I'm very happy to be there, and I have no problem living amongst all my neighbors and welcome projects that invite people into our community. And I don't, regardless of where they happen to be in this giant metropolis of Sonoma, all 2 square miles of it. So I just want everyone to hear that, and I think I hear that from my colleagues as well. But how we get there, I think there's other ways to get there, and that will give people more options, and I think in the long run will produce more affordable housing. And if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be making that recommendation, because I believe that so strongly that that's important, to have everyone in our community be housed. It's a right. So, thank you.
See, I knew there'd be a salient comment by Commissioner Councilwoman Lowe if I had just waited for that, and that was very well said, and certainly I would love to have you make a motion.
I would love to make a motion that we send with our comments back to the Planning Commission to bring us another version of this ordinance for consideration.
You second, or?
Close enough?
I mean, should we
We
be
can
more
discuss
explicit?
more,
Should
yeah.
we be more explicit in our direction?
Like how?
I mean, are there certain like things we want them to look at? Are there certain alternatives that we want them to look
I
at
just
and
said
not
based
look
on
at?
our discussion,
Okay.
I think, which had a lot of alternatives.
Yeah.
Mentioned, you know, and the staff.
Okay.
David's nodding his head,
Okay,
you know,
just-
which
yeah.
means I heard
So if David's
everything
okay,
you
yeah.
said,
No.
and I'm gonna make sure that we have it. Yes, that's what
Okay.
that means.
I have one question that would help.
Okay.
I think it'd be helpful to know how many council members are in support of including waiver of the housing, the residential housing component in each of these zones.
I have a question. May I?
Of course.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
If we can put in the provision for a possible waiver and make it objective, because you have to have findings to have a waiver, if you can come up with objective findings to be able to approve a waiver, then yes, I'm in favor of it.
How does
Because
the
it
council-
gives you one more option. If there, and I'm not saying a waiver by itself, it may come in with an in lieu fee or off-site development or something else as a condition for that waiver to be put into place, which will produce the housing that we're trying to get to, but would get to in a different way.
I
So I
mean,
read-
mean an absolute waiver.
I
no
read
obligation
waiver like
whatsoever.
nothing,
Nothing.
right.
Because that's how it currently has been
Yeah, like they're,
interpreted. So
because
how
an in
many
lieu
council
and
members-
off-site, you're,
No,
Councilman
I'm
support
looking
a
for a
waiver.
waiver with conditions.
Yeah, I don't think you're hearing, I didn't hear anyone say one of the alternatives would be just a blanket waiver. I didn't hear that. I heard a
Well-
menu of options that could be done in lieu of,
well, yes, although, for example, the Sebastiani Theater example,
right.
in that
Well,
situation.
that had to do with the nonprofit situation.
Right.
Right.
And so in that example, I would like to be able to waive. But is that fair to only single out a nonprofit,
We'll see what we can do.
Well,
Right.
and
It's
in that,
important for us to know what the council wants so we can focus our research in supporting.
but if it's like a ground up development, I don't support a waiver.
No.
If, for example, if Safeway wants to add 5,000 square feet of storage, like on the back of that's a commercial zone, I assume. As it's written, would they then have to contribute 5,000 square feet of, into the,
How you construe, yes, I think so.
I mean, if they
That's
just
not
want
the
to add
language.
to and so that's an interesting thing too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not a ground up project. Would they have to do housing impact fees regardless?
It'd be considered new development.
Even if it's an addition to the,
That's the same issue we ran into at McCarthy Place.
right?
Right. Sort of an incompatible use situation where the in lieu fee came up. Well, I mean, what I'm hearing is that we would like to explore in this menu of options, including what happens with nonprofits, such as the Sebastiani Theater, and alternatives for other projects that lead to our affordable housing goal.
could I comment? And nonprofit is broad. It's not just the nonprofit. They are historical building, and that brings a new value and new requirements and new rules. So that might be something that doesn't even involve this.
I could
Yes.
see that a criteria that might apply to Sebastiana Theater would be that you look at the use, the purpose, of what is the purpose of that structure? And that might distinguish it from other uses and purposes that would allow it then to enjoy an exception or a waiver.
And that's all I'm saying. If you would give a waiver, but there would be some objective thing that you could tie it to as a reason for the waiver, whether it doesn't have to be an in lieu fee, it doesn't have to be off-site housing, it can be some other reason, like some historical value.
Yeah, and I would like the planning commission to consider what I raised with just a small expansion on Safeway or Staples, for example. If they're just expanding the footprint of their store for the similar use, would that also require a residential component in lieu fee?
Could I also ask this question, because this may determine whether we need to engage in significant CEQA analysis. Is there a majority of council members that are interested in imposing a greater than 50% component rule? Right now, it's been 50%.
I don't think so.
Commissioner,
Yeah,
come
we
with
just talk
80%.
about exemption. You know, we just talk about exemption. Certain the situation, just like with the value, those kind of value, maybe it's invisible value. It's a historical value. That is our town's most, the valuable than the assets. But it's difficult for us to measure it. So that is very tricky. Maybe you need to do more homework for us. How to
So is there a way that I can call
case
for
by
the-
case, yeah, just.
Can I call for the question?
Well, it hasn't been seconded, although, but I hope that I hope the motion is broad enough to include all of the things that were just mentioned. I'll take that as friendly amendments, and I think your questions are on point, but I don't think we're going to be able to solve them all tonight. I mean, but I think that the direction that we're giving and the questions that you have should also be asked of the planning commission and see what they can do. And now Mr. Storr is there. He likes to, every time I make a motion, he
And they're
likes to
always
come
good,
up and
Sandra. They're always
just
good.
say how great that motion was and tell us more
I told you it was good. It
about
was really
how good
good,
it
yeah.
was. Okay, so
It's very good. I think, and Jeff can certainly, speak for himself, but I think the core question that Jeff is asking is, typically a mixed-use project is a mix. And the language we currently have in our code says should normally be. And so we're trying to get rid of subjectivity, and the planning commission said, let's make it 50%. The question is how you interpret the 50%. And we put the example in the planning commission ordinance. The definition of mixed use in our zoning code for a mixed use project is typically where you have the traditional explanation or definition of commercial on the bottom, residential on the top. And the theory being, if you've got a footprint of commercial of 5,000 square feet and you put residential upon it, that'll be 5,000 square feet. Although you could do smaller, I suppose. Architects can do that. So I think what Mr. Walter is asking is, do you want to kind of stay within that definition in our zoning code about the concept of it being almost equal? 80% is clearly not the mix. It's a majority, it's predominantly. And that's, I think, the question.
It stems also
Yes.
from the fact that the commission has sent an ordinance to you that requires 80%.
right.
So
I'm sensing that probably is not
Through the-
supported by the council, but are you also supportive of requiring more than 50%? And if so, sort of where is that range? Or are you basically telling staff to let you know what greater than 50% might trigger a greater CEQA analysis? And we could
That's
address
a
it from
possible
that
question.
perspective too.
But I think that the reasons that I heard during the planning commission discussion on going to the 80% was based on the availability of financing for the commercial portion. And I don't think there was any evidence presented that supported that fact. And in fact, I think we have had projects that have been proposed on the truck and auto site that certainly had greater commercial percentages that had financing available. So I think there's just the opposite argument that could be made. So I would like us to stay close to the 50 or give us an idea, is there some range that doesn't produce a CEQA problem?
Yeah, I would like the CEQA question on that answered. I would also like to suggest, if possible, when this meeting is scheduled, that it be a special meeting and this be the only topic on the Planning Commission agenda. Thank you.
Oh,
So, I'm sorry, but I said, could we call for the question? And it was totally ignored.
yes.
So I just wanted to mention that. And I think what we have to do is vote.
Through the mayor,
Oh, yeah.
do you feel that we have given you enough input to consolidate all of these thoughts and the questions from our attorney to assist the planning commission in being successful? You feel that way? They do. Okay.
We still need a second?
No, we still need a second.
I second it.
All right. Yeah. Roll call.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Let's move to next agenda item. That is the regular agenda item 6. 6.1 update on fiscal year 2021-22 budget. Oh yeah, sure. 6.1, update on fiscal year 2021 to 22 budget to actual and discuss consideration and a possible action to adopt a resolution regarding middle year budget amendments to the City of Sonoma's operation and a capital budget for fiscal year 21 to 22. Sue, yeah, your turn. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Ding and City Council members. I was going to do like a really in-depth report on this, and I think, you know what, I'm just going to like skip through it and kind of talk about, in 1920, we had a steep drop in revenues, and so we had to rebalance the budget, and we ended up using about $550,000 of reserves. And then in 2021, again, we had the forecast was we were going to be about $2 million in the hole, and ended up it's about 1.2 or 1.1, and we used that of reserves. Let me see where I'm going to skip to. I want to skip to the good news. So when we started the 21-22 budget process, we were still, really unsure of where revenues were going to be, how the pandemic was going to affect revenues for the next fiscal year. There was some good news during budget. We had the vaccine. Hotels were starting to open up. And people were starting to travel again, but then there was still the unknown of, a future COVID-19 variant, which we did have, a surge, and then possible fire and smoke-related shutdowns. And so that was all considered when we were preparing the budget. So the revenue forecast for fiscal year 21-22 was very conservative. And for TOT and sales tax, we had budgeted a very conservative revenue. And the total budget for fiscal year 21-22 forecasted a use of $1.5 million of reserves. And then also during the budget process, the federally funded American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, was signed into law, but we didn't, at the time that the budget was approved, we still were unsure when the funding was going to be received and really how much the was going to be received by the city. So when we discussed the budget, we said that we would be probably receiving about $2.6 million, but we were not going to include it in the budget because we weren't sure about when the funding was coming. But we did discuss that when and if the funding was received, that the revenue would be used to offset expenses such that the use of reserves during the previous 2 fiscal years would be restored. And so we did receive $1.3 million in July of 2021. And so our budget amendments include that $1.3 million in revenue. We'll receive the other half in July of next year, so it'll be included in next year's fiscal year budget. So there are restrictions on the use of the revenue. We can't, it can't be used to directly replenish reserves, but the funding can be allocated to offset projects and expenses that are currently budgeted in this fiscal year. So it's kind of a flop. And so it does result in funds going back to reserves, but it's not, we aren't using that funding for reserves. So good news, happily. The first half of fiscal year 21-22 has seen a dramatic increase in both sales tax and TOT, with TOT seeing the most significant growth. And year-end projections for this fiscal year are indicating actual revenues may be approximately $3.7 million more than originally budgeted. And this does include the 1.3 in ARPA funding. However, TOT and sales tax are contributing to the additional increase. And then we're also showing a slight increase for projected expenditures for fiscal year 21-22, and that will total about $367,000. The majority of the increase is due to a $139,000 salary adjustment for a 1-year fire district labor agreement that was approved after the fiscal year 21-22 budget was adopted. And there's also an increase of $186,000 transfer to the Housing Trust Fund that transfer to the Housing Trust Fund increases is a direct offset to the TOT revenue. So the net is zero on that one. And the fire district labor cost increase will be partially offset by a revenue increase of $95,000 that the city received from the Office of Emergency Services for the use of a city-owned fire truck during the 2021 fire season. So, some of our bigger revenues, sales tax and Measure V sales tax are both coming in about $300,000 more than budgeted, and that's from our HDL company who forecasts that for us, and they've been really accurate. So, and then also, TOT has seen the most dramatic increase, and for 2021, the actual TOT revenue, let's see, for 21-22, we budgeted $4 million for revenue, and that was really set at a pretty much conservative 81% of the fiscal year 19-20 revenue, which we were kind of using as our normal, because up until that time, it was going great guns. And so we used that as our normal. And then when we did our fiscal year 21-22 revenues, we forecast it would be 80% of that normal revenue. But now we're estimating that through January this year, the city has received almost $3.8 million, or 94% of the $4 million budgeted revenue. So we're way ahead of where we had budgeted. And one of the other major revenue sources for the city is ambulance billing. And we had forecast that it was going to be $500,000 less, although we got a different forecast from the fire district. It may be a little bit less, but we have a mid-year adjustment taking that down about $500,000. Business license tax is coming in at 80% of budgeted revenue, but we're not going to make any amendment at this time because just the way the economy seems to be recovering, and we get that business licenses throughout the year, so we may see a uptick in the licenses. And then there's several other minor revenue adjustments that are outlined in Attachment C to the staff report, but Attachment A to the resolution. And we have to do a minor change on the resolution because I said it was Attachment C to the resolution, but people are going to ask what happened to A and B. So we'll be making that change.
The resolution is C?
The attachment, I said it's Attachment C to the resolution, but it has to be Attachment A because there's no other attachment, so we'll fix that. Okay. So the total revenue increase for fiscal year 21-22 is projected to be approximately $3.8 million, and that's detailed in Attachment C to the staff report, Attachment A to the resolution. And then we're also recommending several mid-year budget expenditure adjustments, which I've sort of discussed. There's a budget amendment for funds other than the general fund, and the Sonoma Valley Fire District is requesting a mid-year budget amendment of $134,000 from the EMS, which is Emergency Medical Services Equipment Replacement Fund, and that will be for purchase of 2 LifePak 15 cardiac monitors, LifePak 15 cardiac monitors, a purchase of iPad docks for the new ambulance, and a replacement of Fire Station 1's 24-year-old breathing air compressor, and that'll include medical oxygen filling stations. So based on the fiscal year 21-22 year-end projected revenues and projected expenditures, it appears there will be a surplus of $1.9 million. And although the surplus is in part due to the federal stimulus, ARPA funding, it certainly reflects the continued and pronounced economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's really in contrast to our conservative fiscal year 21-22 budget, which forecasted a use of $1.5 million in reserves. So the attached resolution approving the mid-year budget amendments includes all of those previous adjustments, and staff is also reviewing and revising the city's five-year long-range forecast with actuals and new information, and we'll be bringing that to hopefully the next city council meeting. And we continue to closely monitor all of the city's finances, and we'll use all of these resources as we work on developing the fiscal year 22-23 budget. And that's my report, if you have any questions.
I have a comment. I'm so glad years ago we went through to decide on the reserves. So they actually have a place now. I know there was a number before, but we did, the former council, discuss this thoroughly, which I think is really important to know the importance of having that reserve, because we went through percentages and what other cities have, but I'm glad that it's found its place, so I appreciate it. And I'm gratified by, the success, our success, and how things are looking better at this point, so I appreciate it.
Right, right.
Hi, I have a question. Thank you, Sue, for that presentation, and obviously great news, so thank you. I have a question about the TOT. What is are we at 13%? So when it says that your projections for this fiscal year is 6.1 million
Right, so that includes the
TID?
Yes, no, not the TID. The TID is put into another fund. It includes the 1% TOT transfer. So the total includes what we would, the total TOT, and then there's a expenditure transfer out of 1% of that revenue to the Housing Trust Fund.
Yeah, so that's my question. So the 6.1 million, it's 1% of that, or I thought it was one, like, so the
No,
question is,
it
are we
actually
at
turned-
13%?
Yeah, it actually, it's 14%, isn't it? 'Cause the- yeah,
14
14.
now.
I
yeah.
thought it was 13 plus 2.
Total was a 14,
14.
1% to the full TI.
It's 14?
Yeah,
Yeah,
14.
Oh,
with
so it's
1% going to the Housing
So
Trust.
a guest at a hotel pays 16%, and so 2 goes to the TID and 14 goes to us?
No, they pay 14%, and the percentage of, so there's a percentage that goes to the to the TID, and then
2%.
and then there's 1% that goes to the Housing Trust. So,
Okay, so, and this includes that 1%?
yes.
Because
yeah.
I'm trying to make the point, so I would then divide it by 14, right? To get 1%.
No, it doesn't exactly work out that way. It's actually 8%. I don't know how it works out, but it's actually 8% of the total revenue. Is that what gets transferred to the, and I don't know how that works out to the 1%, but that's the percentage that I've been able to, what is transferred over.
Well, right. 1 over 14 is 8%.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, we're saying the same thing. Okay, so I'm just trying to make a point here for all the people in the room that this year, because of our increased TOT at just over 6 million, it looks like 440,000 is going to go to our housing trust fund.
That's right.
Which will then build upon our affordable housing programs
Yes.
and plans. And so there can be a nexus between
There's absolutely a nexus.
increased TOT and supporting housing.
Yes.
So $450,000 is not nothing for,
Right.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
It's significant, especially because when
Okay.
you think that it would be nothing if you didn't dedicate that money.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be nothing. And now the question is, how do we expand it and what do we do with it? And, yeah,
Maybe.
how do we
Yeah.
get more of it? Right.
Well, it looks
Yeah.
like we
That
might be
is-
able to get that.
Yeah, maybe we can buy the piece of the land, yeah, somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I'm definitely we can get the surplus this year. So now we do something in advance proactively. We should use this additional money to and then pay for the budget cut for the capital improvement project, those because during the pandemic we cut in 30% of the capital improvement account possibly. Maybe we can have a priority list and then using this money.
How to backfill?
Yes.
Well, and I would say that for the fiscal, for the next ARPA funding, for this fiscal year, I mean, you had discussed at the last when we did the budget hearing last year that, I mean, we've used reserves. So we
Yeah.
used 550 in 1920, and then we used 900, let's see, we used 1.1 million in 2021. So in a sense, we kind of want to use the ARPA funding for expenditures this year to replace that, some of that lost funding from the reserves. So, but we can do that by using it for expenses this year, and then we'll have the surplus, which will just go back into reserves. So, but for next year, we have the 1.3 million coming, and we haven't done the forecast, and we don't really know, where we're going to end up. But, that will be something to think about for that 1.3 million. And many cities are grappling with this. How they're going to spend that ARPA funding. So, that's something that we'll have to think about.
That's great. Yeah, if we receive money, yeah, we know how to handle it, to be compliant and use a lot of the places we needed to spend. Yeah, I don't have any additional, question. How about you guys? Okay.
So are you saying we're going to have enough money to replace the garbage cans in the plaza this year? I try to bring that up at every meeting.
Or stop
Yeah.
signs,
Stops.
benches,
Yeah.
community service officers on the trail. I mean,
Yes,
just
I
have
wasn't
coffee
trying
with
to-
me. I can tell you all the
Yeah,
things
sure.
that people
Yes,
want.
yes.
I want to
Park.
suggest on the
Park.
public
Yeah,
public and
That's what
the
you're at,
restroom.
though.
Yeah, also needed to fix. Yeah. Plaza.
Right, what is it, just ask us, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But honestly, we make light of it, but really, we do hear a lot of requests from people in Sonoma, and and through the budget process, I would imagine that there's going to be an opportunity to share some of these, and I would say 99% of the things are budget items. Some of them are one-time expenditures, and some of them are ongoing expenditures, and some of them do have, like the park, on MacArthur and Fifth, would have maybe Measure M funds to start, but then there's the maintenance piece of it, right, which is an ongoing thing. So, but I hope that there's an opportunity to just kind of share some of these things that we hear, because boy, we hear them a lot.
Right.
And
you want to think about this as one-time funding, so you kind of want to use them for one-time projects,
Yeah.
so that,
Two stop signs on Napa Street at Fifth Street East.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and Sandra, thank you, because I belong to Sonoma Splash, and the reason we're there is to make that pool sustainable. They dug the hole, now we have to make sure it doesn't get filled in like it did many years ago. You must be aware of that. But that's what we're doing. And the most important thing, I believe, the pool committee, oh no, God, bad feelings. But the most important thing we're really involved with is having every child by the third grade swim. So that's something that's important to us as well. But that's what the pool committee is doing, making sure that that pool doesn't get filled in. I'm sorry for bringing back trauma.
It was dramatic, I'm telling you.
All right, Madam, maybe you can make a motion. We can finish this agenda.
I saw this.
Has this gone to the public for comment?
Oh, public comments. Thank you. Let me now open to public comment. Officer, do you have any comments? No? Okay. Let me close the public comment, and then come back to
Sure, thank you,
Council.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce this resolution, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sonoma to amend fiscal year 21-22 budget resolution number 46-2021 to accomplish fiscal year 21-22 mid-year budget amendments.
I second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Agenda number 7, council members' report and the comments. County? You have
I
one?
got one.
Okay, good.
I attended the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission meeting on March 23rd, together with Councilwoman Lowell. And I'll take the easy part. There was a request to build a tennis court in a riparian corridor, and they recommended denial of that because of the riparian corridor, and there was plenty of acreage out front where they could build their tennis court if they really wanted to. And then the rest of the discussion was on matters relating to the developmental center, and Sandra stepped up very well and spoke on that, and I'll turn it over to her.
Yeah, just, I reminded them of the letter that we sent to Brian O. and reiterated our position on the development. Since that time, I'm in 2 meetings a week about the Sonoma Developmental Center on these. They're not committees that are formed by this council or by the county, but they're just meetings that various people put together. And in fact, there's one every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and I obviously didn't go to that one today. But, there's a lot of people very actively engaged in it. And I think we'll hear some, I'm hoping that something good is going to break through. The biggest news probably from that is that the Coastal Conservancy could possibly be the governing agency for the developmental center. And if that happened, that would alleviate a lot of people's concerns about, who's in charge. So, So I was happy to share what I know, and, most of my free time is regarding the developmental center, it seems like.
So I guess I would like to mention in the Chronicle today, they talked about California has $600 million in unclaimed can and bottle deposits. We're still waiting for our, we part of that $100,000 grant. We were going to have a recycling center. I think it's a mobile thing that runs around to different cities. I wanted to go look at the opening in Sebastopol. It was at a church, and Zero Waste was opening. Possibly a church here would like to have that facility and be paid to have it there. So now millions more money has been dedicated to this issue. And I actually think, and the people who oversee these things think they want to let the grocery stores and all the people who are supposed to be recycling off the hook. So that's the drama from Cal Recycle. And I would also like to, I haven't met with Zero Waste. This is that. North Bay Watershed Association has not met 2 times. And so I also wanted to say that I dedicated this evening to Dr. John E. Emery.
I went to the County Water Advisory Commission meeting last Monday. Just the routine meeting, and the weather, still is dry, and then no any sign. Although this year is getting the better, but no any very positive, the signs for the future years. So the saving water always number 1, and also this year we look at our water and the rate, our water rate overall. And will be an increase in 5%, based on how much you spend for the maintain the water distribution system and the capital improvement, these kind of and projects. Overall, it's fine, and Sonoma County still is in the lowest water rate, and in all in the Bay Area. That is my report.
If I just might add something from which we approved in the consent calendar, that I was really happy to be able to appoint Vicki Harristy to the Commission on Design Review and Historic Preservation, and just to make a point that obviously the name Harristy is renowned in Sonoma, but Vicki lives right now in Agua Caliente. So, which I call potential Sonoma, the city of Sonoma, and she's a renter there, and that I think is very important to have people who are renters on our commissions, and you know, sort of taking a page from what we talked about earlier. So you know, because it's very difficult. Even, you know, if your family's been here literally for centuries, it's very difficult to find a place to live here, and I think she's going to be an incredible asset to that commission. So,
Yes.
thank you.
That's good. Thank you. All right. Yeah, let's move on to agenda number 8, city manager comments and announcements.
One announcement, well, actually two. It's actually future agenda items.
Oh, yeah.
So the 1% transfer to TOT, the resolution actually expires on 6/30 of this year. And so we'll need to bring that back, and, you know, for, like, how long do you want to extend it? You know, do we want to have a component in there if the economy tanks again? You know, do we want to reconsider that? So they did it for a three-year. They did it for 3 years last time when they approved it, and so we would be bringing that back. And I would do it for 3 years, but if you know, you have suggestions, just let me know, and we could bring that back. But we do need to bring that back before June 30. So. And then the other one, I'm just wondering if we want to bring a flag policy.
Flag policy, maybe we needed to do more research. Yeah. Before that, just hold it. You know, no any.
What's
no
a
any
flag
carry out.
policy?
Well, we've had several requests lately. We had the Ukrainian flag flying. I made the decision, the ultimate decision, that it was okay. I think that it probably needs to be a full council decision before you determine whether you're going to fly one particular flag. And so that was, you know, so then it kind of brought up, like, do we have a flag policy? We don't really have a flag policy. We actually went through this at the beginning of the pandemic as well, because we felt like there might be a lot of requests for the flags to be flown at half-mast for dignitaries, and, you know, so there's the standard federal flag policy, but then there's other flags that may be requested to be flown for diplomats or whatever, and so I felt like we should have a policy. So I don't want to make the decision, you know, like our city manager have to make the decision. I think it should be a full council decision. So.
Would this include, like, commemorative style flags, like for Pride Month and things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, that is, you know, usually because the sister city, our city is different from other cities. We have the 7 different sister cities. That is not a normal. So according to the sister cities, you know, they practice, once they have the delegation to visit here, and out in the city and the sister city, they work together, they have some inventory, all the complete 7 sister cities, right? So that is I'm not sure that Hans reserved the 7 sister cities give to you, or the city has an inventory?
We don't.
Oh, you don't have?
We do not.
Oh, okay.
It's something that we can talk about if we bring the item back, but this is something right now that I've asked our park supervisor, because of this issue, to do an inventory of the flags that we actually have. Sister cities are not the flags we have in inventory. What we have are the flags that typically fly over City Hall, which are not the sister city flags.
Yeah.
The 7
They're
flags.
Yeah, 7 flags, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that shouldn't connected with the, you know, sister city nonprofit organization. This is just only the nonprofit organization, is not going to represent the city. You know, yeah, we should have it in a policy.
Well, that would, I mean, if we had a flag policy, there might be a time where, you know, with Sister Cities Week or something like that, where we would, you know, I mean, we don't have a policy is what you're saying, and so we have what we have, and, yeah.
We have the practice, you know, because without the policy, but they already did. For example, previous delegation come to here, they were usually.
You know what I would say is this: we didn't have this item for discussion this evening.
All right.
But I was just
Yeah,
going to bring
in the
it back.
future.
I was, if council's interested, we would bring a policy back for council discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So could I ask, in the future, possibly in the next meeting, you could introduce, what's his, Berger, the new Public Works Director?
Yes, so exciting. Yes, we will.
Yeah. And are we doing future agenda items?
Uh-huh.
So I assume the council would like to further discuss the stop sign on Fifth Street East in Napa. So however, you
Right.
heard that, right?
Right, and actually, I did talk to the interim Public Works Director,
Mhm.
and I said that if we had direction from council, because it's going to take an engineering study, and so we would embark on that engineering study for those intersections. And I think it was Fifth Street East and and Napa. And then I heard another intersection, but I have that.
Oh,
Andrew?
3rd Street West and Spain Street by Vallejo's home. I don't think they wanted a stop sign, or maybe they did.
Yeah, see, I did, the only one I really knew about was the one
Yeah.
that we had the public comment on, and,
But we've also heard on the west side on Fifth Street West by Montini, that's kind of been a
Mhm.
thoroughfare. We've heard comments about that. So I think just in general,
Right.
I
And-
think that's important.
Yeah, and I would like to, I guess, have further analysis on the question of, you sent out, I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's like
there is a study.
a guide or something that we have to follow, like they do
Yes.
a warrant analysis.
Yes.
And there's concern that some of these intersections will not qualify for a stop sign, but do we have the ability to, these are our streets, and we can put a stop sign wherever we want, right? Or do we have to follow I'm not asking you now, I'm just saying, like, I would like to.
I would certainly, that's something I'll bring up
I'm not
with
asking
Pat.
you, I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
so
we need to
that's-
know the
yeah,
answer to that
right,
question.
so he just
Yeah.
said if the direction is, then he would,
Yeah.
and I can talk with him about it further, so.
I
And
just
could-
wanted to mention.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, and I just wanted to mention, another council worked on Second and Patton.
Mhm.
That took 3 years. So I don't know how many dogs you can kill in that time, but.
Please.
It's terrible. It's just awful. I mean, that was a bad intersection. And it needs another stop sign on Second Street East.
Yeah, but I think the idea is, and I brought this up, I think, one of our first meetings and back then, and we just some traffic calming programs in a lot of our areas. I think, because we're hearing it really all over, and then, of course, the crosswalks, I think we heard at Patton and at Andrex.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I would like to discuss at some point soon, hopefully, and I think, Sue, we had talked perhaps the next meeting, the impacts the neighborhood by Traintown and the lodge are having. We had discussed that at the the Traffic Safety Committee discussed that last summer, and they made recommendations to council. We have yet to hear about that. Obviously, Traintown is an island, an unincorporated island. We can't obviously impose regulations on them, but we could perhaps do other things for that neighbor. We just need to talk about that. So I know the neighborhood's been asking for that. So
One obvious suggestion is you can do permit parking or something along the residential streets, if you have to.
yeah,
Or
Yeah, I
limit
think
the-
there's
limit the-
short-term and long-term solutions for that area, so.
and then small thing, but we got an email today about water fountains at Olson Park. So hasn't been working for 7 years. So
Right, and I did get an update on that as well, so.
Okay.
Okay.
And
And
then
I
the
think I responded to,
I didn't.
Yeah, I got it.
oh, you got it.
I
Okay.
think we all. You also
I
did.
should,
we all
I'll send it to all
Okay.
council,
Yeah,
so,
share
yeah.
each other.
And
And-
as long as we're doing big jobs here, there's that water fountain in the women's bathroom. The blow dryer for your hands has been broken for 2 years. And I don't know what they have to do to fix it.
Just wipe it on your pants.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Which bathroom, I'm sorry?
The women's bathroom on the plaza, you walk in, first blower on the left, the little knob is hanging out.
Yeah, we have the money. Yeah, we can fix.
Fix that.
And then the final thing I want to talk about,
Let's get
and
this all
perhaps
on.
during the budget process. And you may not know more about this, Councilwoman Lowe, but I've seen in the news recently where there have been demonstrations at the high school over safety at the high school. The teachers have been demonstrating. Now students are demonstrating. This is clearly not our jurisdiction, but to the extent that 2 years ago the council removed the school resource officer, there's been some discussion that, and maybe this is true, maybe it's not, but perhaps there have been issues that have resulted from removing that. And so if the school district's open to restoring that, if we're open to restoring that, I would like to at least talk about that in the budget process.
Yes, maybe.
But that's
we
up
pay in
to,
school.
that's not just up to us, obviously, but yeah.
We pay the 1/3, right? 33%.
We did.
We did, or
No, it was split, a third
Yeah,
between the
third.
school district, us, and then the county.
but during the past 2 years, did we pay or no?
We did, they removed that off.
Yeah, they removed off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, school was closed for a number of those years. Yeah.
And I'd like to apologize for my callousness mentioning about dogs being killed. I apologize. As you know, I have a sense of humor, and sometimes it expands beyond good behavior. So I apologize.
All right, I think it's enough for today.
And I think we're, Rebecca said we're going to listen to campaign finance and also the appointment process. Yeah.
We will be bringing the appointment process, but it will not be at the next meeting.
Okay. Because, we need to, there is a vacancy on the planning commission.
I will be putting the press release out tomorrow for the vacancy for the Planning Commission as well as the Citizens Advisory Commission.
And when are we going to create the pros? You know,
May 1st, the May 1st meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about 200 years anniversary?
It's not an anniversary.
It's a commemoration.
It's a
The
commemoration.
commemoration. Yeah. So very practical. They were not using a celebration on it. Just
It's a commemoration, and there is.
Yes, that is the.
The word, yeah, and they're very specific about that. But as I said, I have staff
Commemoration.
attending those meetings, so, and once they get to the process,
Okay.
they're not talking about a celebration, so.
Do you think we needed to have a group or ad hoc, or just work with the state park? Because state park, they have a plan to. Yeah, they include us. Do we need to, have our ad hoc committee and work together, or more, maybe?
I'm all for supporting that. I don't know.
Yeah, later you see, because on the local nonprofit, they are very passionate for this. They also they said that, do you need, if you need the money, so they can contribute to the money, to.
Yeah, as I said, I have Lisa Jansen, our event manager,
Okay.
has been attending all the
Yeah.
meetings, and they haven't really gotten to the discussion of not a celebration, but how
Yeah.
we would commemorate, and how
Commemorate.
the city would be involved in that.
Yes.
So
Or later maybe, and let Jensen contact with the TID group, because TID group, they already prepare
they were
some
at
of
the
funds.
meetings. Yeah, they were also at the
Okay.
meetings. So
All right. All right, that is the moving agenda, motion. Do you want to make a motion? Fine. Now, last one is city attorney, Jeff, do you have any?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for asking.
So all right, last agenda, that is adjourned, Good night, everyone.